Welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek. Today is October 23rd, Slap Your Annoying Coworker Day.
Did you make this up?
I didn't. You can fact check it right now if you'd like. I am your co-host, Zach Badger Davis, and sitting to my right is...
Hi, I'm Juliana Chaunce, a.k.a. Chaunce.
We should run this by the head of HR to see what sort of trouble you'd get in
this
celebrating this holiday.
This would be a perfect day for us to do that tortilla challenge, where you fill your mouth with water and you slap each other with tortillas.
Is that still ongoing?
As long as you want it to be.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll have today's guest quickly run out and get some tortillas for us. Reminders of any kind. Yes, we are nearing the end of our amazing t-shirt campaign here. If you want some very cool merch for yourself or as a gift, you know, holiday's right around the corner, head to the link in the show notes. This is a very vintage, kind of Miami Vice vibe. Nice shirt. I don't know.
Yeah, no, they're cool. They're different than the ones we've done before. They're more fashion than function, and the fashion part's great. So get one while you can, because we're not going to just keep them up forever. Yeah.
Don't sleep on this one, guys. Also, we would like your submissions for our forthcoming book, Pooping in the Woods. If you've got a nasty do story that has happened in the backcountry, please share it with us, and we've got a nice little incentive for you.
Yes, for any submissions that we get between the start of time and Halloween, we are going to be unbiasedly selecting someone to win a Backpacker Radio Arctic, what do we call them, tumblers, mugs?
20-ounce tumbler.
20-ounce tumbler.
Perfect for water, coffee, alcohol, booze, or alcohol.
Hidden snacks, anything like that. And you can only get these if you are an in-person guest. There are guest gifts. So that's the super fun part, is that unless you are a guest that has come in person into the studio, there's nowhere to get one. So if you win one through this, you'll be one of the rare, one of the elite, and you will likely have shared an amazing poop story in the process.
Lastly, if you are taking on a long-distance backpacking trek in 2024 and want your journey featured on an awesome large platform, hit us up. The Trek is currently taking blogger applications for 2024. The link for that is in the show notes. Let's not beat around the bush any longer. He is returning. This is Pony 4.0. He's always, it's 3 re's, right?
3 re's.
Yeah, 3 re's.
1, 2, 3. Today's 4.
Yes.
Right.
He is a listener favorite. He is a co-host favorite. He's the best. He's fresh off the CDT with, I'm sure, some poop stories to share.
I have one poop story for sure.
You want to start there?
Yeah, happy to.
Okay. Ooh, let's jump right in.
I mean, the problem is there's so much context, but so I did a Big Sky alternate, which means I did not go out sort of west of Butte and loop around through the Pintlers and all that. That was on purpose. Actually loved my Big Sky alternate. It was really cool. I got to meet tons of non-hikers, but there was a big long road walk that I did, and it was cool. I mean, it was fine. There wasn't that much traffic, but I was super tired at the end of the day. I was doing 30 plus whatever, and I just was like, I gotta stop. So there's like super steep, off the shoulder down. And I was like, I think I can get there. And there was some water nearby. So I set up my tent, and there was all this super tall grass, right, all around my tent. And I was outside the tent, and I got like a sudden, I just thought, I'm gonna fart. So I had the worst sharding experience. And I've really only had one. You heard about my first one on the PCT.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. So I'm like, oh my God. It was like not even sharding. It was shitting that disguised itself as a fart, like a pretty substantial amount of feces. And I'm like, oh my God, exhausted already. So I have my little tidy, Under Armour things on. I'm like, oh, geez. I took them off.
Was it contained in the underpants?
It was, but I took them off. Jeez. It was terrible because I took them off and I'm like, I don't want to touch this. And then so I was keeping it inside out. There was like an irrigation ditch. I'm going to go wash them. No. I turned it inside out. So all of it was on the outside, which got completely smeared on all the tall grass right outside my tent door. And so now I'm standing naked with traffic roaring by. They can't see me up above with my shitty underwear, everything. I mean, it was the worst. I did manage to stagger and sort of rinse them out. But so the whole night I was inside my tent just smelling my own shit, fully aware that this very tall, like, chest high grass, it was maximally covered with shit.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Does that keep animals away, or does that draw them in?
I think bears like shit, but I was right next to a road, and I wasn't too worried about that. But it had just been, road walking's rough anyway, and it was asphalt road walking because I chose it. It was my little alternate, and it was cool in a way. But dang, what a way to end a long day!
Yeah,
it was Jody told me to kind of watch my mouth this time, and I will. But I was garmenting her like, oh my God, I just had the worst sharding episode ever.
Yeah.
It's not even sharding. I think it's shitting. I don't know. It was bad.
Was there something in particular that you said that rubbed her the wrong way?
No, I can become a potty mouth because I get so excited about everything.
Yeah. I think it was the first episode we talked about jizz quite a bit.
Yeah, it might have been the second, but
okay.
And she's just funny. And she told me not to say that she told me not to cuss. She didn't tell me not to cuss. She said, well, it's up to you. But, yeah.
5 minutes in, we're already spilling secrets.
Yeah, well, we're talking about poop, so I can say shit. I'm going to really keep the lid on it from here on out.
Good.
I'll say darn and heck and...
I have some important farting technology to relay. This has helped my sharding. I've cut down my sharding quite a bit. Is if you spread a butt cheek in the process of farting, it lets the fart out easier. And if you have to push at that point, there's poop.
Yeah.
So just kind of create a gap, a chasm for the fart to easily escape. And if an extra shove is required, and you can usually feel it coming, you should stop immediately and find some place to go.
This was a weird thing because I think I was so tired that I just almost wasn't aware what was happening until now it's too late. It's happening and it's going to fully happen. Like, oh my God, it was bad. Mm-hmm. No thanks.
What a way to start a conversation.
Yeah, where do we take it from there?
Poop stories.
We'll come back to CDT stuff because I know there's a whole series of events that play out. But let's go chronologically from the last time that we've chatted.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the thing I've got at the top of my list here was it early this year, the Cape Wrath Trail?
So that was in the spring. I have one thing that I did that's trail related before that I did like in the end of February, early March, which was, people who've hiked the AT may know Woods Hole Hostel. I've been bugging Neville for a few years, like, hey, I'll come up and chop some wood if I need to get away in the winter. And she just contacted me finally and said, you know what, we're going to go do a little hiking, a little meditation, and do you want to take care of the animals? So I was a caretaker up there for, I think, 12 days. There's a poop story there too, although it's not my poop story. Yeah, it was really a cool thing to do. Like, I was managing 4 cows, 4 goats, 3 pigs, 3 dogs, and 2 cats. That was the main thing. And then they've got this really cool, like, furnace thing that keeps the water hot. And it's supposedly like this, oh my God, it always goes out like at 2 a.m. when it's raining. But it was really cool. I actually got 4 hikers there. They didn't get Neville's awesome cooking, but I made some beans for them. And then I had nobody. So I was really by myself, and I ran every day and I did a bunch of stuff.
This was in February?
It was late February, early March. Yeah, it was cold rain a lot, and I just really liked it. I love that place up on the mountainside. So I had a really, really cool time.
Were the hikers that were going through, were they attempting a calendar year triple?
They were all different kinds of people. No calendar year triples. There were guys that were actually hiking, nobos, which seems insane to me. And then there were guys that, I think one guy was like soboing from New York. I mean, there were sectioners. There were 4 guys, 4 older guys, and they all had kind of different schemes. They all landed on the same night. And I was like, oh, geez, I guess I'm going to have a lot of hikers. That was it. I never saw anybody after that. Nobody.
Yeah.
So I was all by myself.
Should we dig into this other poop story?
Yeah. So she has the sweetest, most awesome animals in the world. And that was my main job. She has an elderly dog who is super old and incontinent. Well, she barks to let you know she has to go out at night. And she can go out for a really long time, which is like, So I was sleeping up in this loft, and it was fine. It was fine. You know, I'd hear her bark. I'd get up. I'd blearily go, let her out, whatever, stand there and wait. And she'd come back in. And one night, I just heard her bark, so I get up, come down the loft stairs, and I go across this, beautiful wooden floor. I hit the dining room and just went, voop, and just slid and smack. I had no shirt on, and I had like these cut-off surgeon's pants into a heap of diarrhea. And that trail of diarrhea went all the way from there, all the way across the house. And I was like, oh my God.
You said it wasn't your poop story, but it became your poop story.
It became my poop story. And so I was literally covered in feces. I got her out the door, and then I'm like, I looked, I saw the furnace was out. It was raining. I'm like, this is like a bad comedy. So I had to shower, I had to do all this stuff, get the furnace going, and she came back in. She's a super sweet old dog. I think she was probably barking more than once, and I just didn't hear her. Mm-hmm. So, Neville, if I come back, and I'm hoping to come back, I'm going to have to sleep downstairs.
I thought you were going to say that dog better be dead.
No, God, no. She's a great dog. They're awesome. Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah. We have an old incontinent dog as well, so
yeah.
I'm empathetic to that situation.
But really, truly, like, flat on my back into diarrhea.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Let's just spend the entire show talking about feces.
I mean, we're going to have more with what it looks like is on our roster here.
There are some other things.
Yeah. Anything else from that experience?
I just think it was really a cool thing to do, and I just got to re-engage the AT. The other thing is I got really obsessed with the murders of the two women at Wapiti Shelter back in 81, 82.
Mm-hmm. What triggered that?
Well, because it's really near there. And I kind of forgot that it was near there. So I was running every day and hiking and doing stuff. And, you know, I just started reading about it and this and that and the other thing. And I ran down to where they had moved the shelter to the new spot. You know, whatever. It's like true crime weirdness. I was by myself, bored. So when I was coming back from the shelter that day, and it was a kind of a long run. I think it was like probably 10 miles round trip. I met this guy, and he was going along hiking with two ladies. And I said, yeah, I don't know why. I just got really obsessed with it. I found this guy's blog last night, and I was just reading all about it. And he's like, that's my blog. How weird is that?
Yeah, what are the odds?
Yeah, I would think he'd be then about to murder me.
Yeah.
The coincidence would be too.
I was just trying to answer questions because there's like this old broken down shelter just off the trail. I was like, is that it? I don't know where I got so obsessed, but yeah. So.
Anything fun? Tell us this. Well, since you went down the rabbit hole, for people that don't know the story, tell us the story.
We're close to Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get spooky.
You know, I'm actually don't listen to true crime anymore because I happened to listen to one about a victim whose family I met after the fact. I was like, yeah, this might be kind of bad to listen to. But I still have the fascination. So two women, there's a guy, or it might have been, was it two women? It might have been a guy and a girl. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. But yeah, he murdered them and he was arrested. And he went to prison, the whole thing. And then he got out. This is really crazy. And he went right back to the same area. I think they had moved the shelter by then. And there was a guy who was fishing. And the murderer attacked this fishing guy, like right after he got back out of jail. And then he stole that guy's truck. And he tried to escape in the truck. And
how much time does one serve after murdering two people?
Wasn't that long. He got like a 9-year sentence. It was weird. It was a short sentence, and people were really pissed. Yeah. I mean, I was reading the history. It was, or 10, or, you know, it wasn't that long. So he gets back out. He steals the guy's truck. He crashed it into a tree and was injured badly enough that that's what got the cops there. This is kind of interesting. I shouldn't, you know, I don't know what happened. But they didn't take him to the hospital. They just took him to jail, where he died that night. And you can almost see it's the same probably department that had to deal with the guy the first time. Yeah. They're like, you know what? You're not getting out again. We're going to let you recover from your injuries in a jail cell.
Yeah. Clearly not in line with what our legal system
would
not
have
at
said,
all. But like nobody's shedding a tear over that either.
No, and you know, nobody would, you couldn't prove that, but that's literally what happened.
Yeah.
They didn't take him to the hospital. They took him to jail and he died. Creepy. It's creepy.
Did it, as a journalist yourself, did it cross your mind after meeting the person whose blog was revealing these details that maybe this is fate's way of saying that you should write a book about this?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wrote a story for the Trek years ago, and this is my baseline position is like, let's not be too afraid of stuff that we don't need to be afraid of.
Almost said shit
and
there.
Murders, I did. I caught myself. Murders are one of those things. But yeah, there are some interesting stories. And you had somebody on with a podcast about murders in parks and stuff, remember?
That was a Halloween episode.
Yeah. So again, I have a little bit of an ethical issue just because I happened to be listening to one of her episodes, and it turned out to be about this murder that took place the kidnapping took place very near the trail. And it just completely randomly, I had a relationship with her family after the fact up in Longmont. And it just kind of was like, oh, wow. We listen to these things like, oh, this is cool. It's interesting. But as a family, it probably feels pretty bad. Yeah. And her murder was awful.
Yeah,
awful.
Because true crime is such a huge genre, and for that to become
enormous.
like a national sensation, that's got to just open up the wound again.
And I'm not going to mention her name because I don't want to drag the family through, but this young woman was kidnapped on Blood Mountain, basically, and murdered in a horrific way. And she had her dog with her, and the dog was found and came back to live with her parents in Longmont. And that's how I got involved, because I was working with the Humane Society. So...
spooky.
Yeah, creepy. But yeah, it does. It does. Everybody's interested in it, and you want to track down all the little bits and pieces and figure out what happened.
Yeah. Well, now that we've got our spoonful of spooky, let's talk about some hiking stuff.
Yes, hiking.
We featured this.
We've done poop. We've done murder. Okay.
Maybe we'll find some cum again. I want to talk about the Cape Wrath Trail. We featured this in a trail propaganda or track propaganda many moons ago, but obviously I want to hear it directly from the source.
Yeah.
Give us the lowdown.
Yeah, so I knew I was going to go back to the CDT this year because I was splitting it over 2 years. And then just quite randomly, this young second cousin of mine, we'd sort of briefly interacted like, hey, this looks cool. But in like midway through April, she's like, you want to go do it? And she had originally said 2024, so I thought she was talking about that. She's like, no, I mean like next month. I'm like, yeah. I had some deadlines. I wrapped them up, flew over there. And, it was really, really a cool trail. I got great weather. You don't always get great weather, and that could, I think, really dampen things. But my God, it's like, so where it starts is Fort William, which is the end of the West Highland Way. And you take a ferry from there across this little, firth, and then you just start going northwest, and you wind up at the very northwest tip of Scotland. It is wild. I think 25% of the trail is not a trail. You're going through bogland a lot. And what it is it's like you're just going up and over these big bald mountains because humans cut down all the trees 900 years ago. And then you drop down to a sea lock, and then you go up, and then you go down, and go up, and you go down. You go through these little towns, and they're not towns. Like it might be a B&B. So, but you can do it, and it's definitely considered the hardest trail in the UK. And I just really came to think of it as like the AT of the UK. It's steep and rocky and muddy, and I loved it. And like I say, I had great weather. So I was lucky. And I hiked with my cousin for about 90 miles or so, and she had different priorities. Like, me, I think, I just am kind of forward motion. I like to go, and I do the side trips when I'm done with the hike. And she kind of wanted to go out to Skye and do some of that stuff. So after 90 miles, I just walked off by myself. And not a lot of people on the trail, but definitely hikers more international than Americans. Met some great people. The last few days I was with this unbelievably awesome guy from England, and we hiked around each other and camped together, and God, it was great. I loved it.
How long is it?
Well, so there are alternates in different ways, but you could say 230, but it could be as long as 240, as short as like 220. And it's very doable. May is a good time to go. Summer's okay. Midges, they call them, these horrible little bugs, were just starting to happen then. You can get terrible rain. And I mean like windswept, hurricane force winds up on these high moors and stuff. But God, is it beautiful. It was really fun.
And did you hike it in May?
I did, yeah. I can't remember exactly when I started and finished. It took me 14 days because I kind of sped up after I split from my cousin. And, anybody, okay, so it is hard. It is surprising. I think people Europeans or whatever, they come to that and it's like their first non-Camino / West Highland Way, I think it shocks them. But my theory is if you've done the AT for sure, and really the PCT probably too, this is nothing here is going to really freak you out.
Yeah.
Unless you get rained on the whole time.
Two things caught me about your post is just how much blue sky is in these photos.
Oh my God, it was
great.
great.
Yeah, which is not what I picture when I when I think of Scotland. And you have one photo in here of what I know the camera never does it justice, but this particular climb is very steep and very rocky.
Yeah.
To your point, it does look AT-ish, maybe even like a little long trail.
Yeah, no, and there was places like that, and there was, you know, some of the untracked parts. Honestly, I guess there's some debate. So you come up around this mountain. I'm not gonna Benai, it's called, and it's a big massif, and it's got different, you know, peaks. And my cousin did one of those, and the actual trail goes back around the mountain, but it is untracked for, I don't know, 8 miles or 10 miles or something. The hardest hiking I've ever done. It took forever. It's like bog, rocks, steep, up and down, muddy, just you never can rest your mind. You are picking their whole way across. And when I was reading the little guidebook about it, I think the guidebook guy underplays it, but he did say there are people who say that shouldn't be on this trail. That's ridiculous. And most people, they don't really do it. I didn't actually talk to that many hikers who do it. So there's like a road alt that you can do instead. But, you know, it's kind of cool to be challenged that way.
Yeah.
Is that the maps? Is the guidebook, or are there other ways that you can navigate?
Well, yeah. So map-wise, Ordnance Survey is this British map company, and they're the ones that there's these incredibly detailed 1 to 25,000, you know, maps. That's like the gold standard. The guidebook is good. He's definitely wrong about things. Like one day, my cousin and I were like, there's no way this is like what he's saying, you know, 19 miles or whatever. And we figured out later it was like 28 miles. So there are places where I don't know if he's like actually done the hiking, but it's mostly accurate and it's helpful for the most part. So people get the little guidebook. It's a small thing like you get for the CT. And then Ordnance Survey maps is a good idea.
Are you using GPS as well?
I used Gaia and Ordnance Survey as a GPS. But here's the thing. You know, the trees that you see there are planted in recent years, and they're like these little glens down in the valleys, whatever. Literally the Neolithic peoples or whatever, they just hacked it all down and burned it. So it's kind of hard to get lost, in my opinion. If you're a person with like a semi-decent sense of direction, yeah, you could have fog. And I got that. But like, if you know just how to take a bearing and you're like, I see that I need to go around to the right of this peak, you don't really need maps. I didn't feel like I did. But at the same time, too, sometimes there's tracks through bogs that are going to make it easier on you. And I will say, I went in a dry year, like kind of a droughty year for them. It's still wet, but I'm sure it's crazier, like the bogs and stuff, if you go in a normal year. Because my cousin went up to her hip a couple times. I never did. I was like maybe shin deep. And like the bogs, you have to learn what it is, because it looks like just grass, but you'll go.
And you did this northbound?
I did northbound, yeah.
Do people go south on this?
They do.
What are the relative pros and cons?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, I'm trying to think of what I wrote in the piece, but first of all, the prevailing wind is south to north. That's a big thing that people say, and I did notice that. Like, yeah, the wind was pretty much at my back. That's good. Getting to Cape Wrath itself is kind of a pain in the butt. I mean, it really is remote. There's this little hostel up there, and they have a little shuttle, and then you have to take like a ferry across this, you know, Firth, this sea lock. The day that we tried to go out, this Guy, shout out to Guy. We had so much fun together, but it was too windy, so we couldn't go on the little ferry. So we ended up having to like walk, you know, it was going to be like an 8-mile walk around. But I was like, well, it's low tide. I'm just walking across. So I was like knee deep across the ocean. I walked across the ocean and cut off about 6 miles. And then you're in a town that has one bus that comes through, and you have to have a reservation, and there's 16 spots. There's a hostel, but it's often full. It's just difficult to get there. So in a way, I think it's just easier logistically to start from Fort William. You got your grocery store. You got so many outdoor stores because that's the end of West Highland. It's more remote the further north you get. So I think it's just like, if you kind of want, it's a little bit like any of these American trails. It's like, it's just logistically a little easier to start. Steepness, God, there were some steep places. In fact, there were some hills that for Sobos I was like, this would suck, because it's just mud and rocks and really, really steep. And I mean, I just was leaning on my poles all the way down. I saw people trying to bike these steep parts. I mean, they can't ride, but just pushing your horrible loaded bike, no thanks. No. Yeah. Unbelievably cool, though.
Yeah. Have you done the West Highland Way?
I have not.
Is this on your bucket list?
I mean, we can get there. I have to think about what I'm going to do now, because I have told Jody, and it's like, it's in my heart. I think I'm done with the long stuff. I don't have any aspirations to do North Country Trail. I don't really feel like going overseas that much. I have friends who've done Tarot. It sounds like a big pain in the butt. So I don't really have that. So it's going to be smaller stuff, and stuff like that. And maybe a little longer, we can talk about my future aspirations.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you notice the accent change at all the further north you got?
No, but I was trying. Okay, so when I got off the trail, we got a great hitch, and then we got to the train, and we took the train to Inverness, and he headed to London, and I go to 12-step meetings. So I went to 12-step meetings in Inverness, Glasgow, and Edinburgh. I like to think I understand the Scottish accent pretty well. Yeah, sit in a gymnasium with like 40 people, I got maybe 1 out of every 5 words. Seriously. Yeah. So I didn't notice it changed, but I love the sound of it, and I like to pretend that I can do it, but I love it. I've got some Scottish roots, massive Scottish roots, so.
Let's hear your impersonation.
Oh, God. The Keep North Trail, it's about 10 to 40 miles, but you can do it different ways. So it goes up and down these big, high, we call them, what they call Monroes. They're not like mountains, it's called a Monroe. And you go up and you go over and they go down to the Sealach. You might see whales, you might see seals. There's almost no people there. That's my Scottish accent.
That was good.
That was very good.
Better
You'll
than I
probably
thought it would
get
be.
like really angry Scottish people like, no, he's fucking horrible. He's
cursed.
terrible. Yeah.
Does cursing count if it's in an accent?
No, it doesn't. It absolutely, I agree. It doesn't count.
It's not a true Scottish accent if you're not.
Yeah,
swearing.
I agree.
So you mentioned the place that you started had a grocery store, but most of the places that you're going through are just like an Airbnb. What's the resupply situation?
Yeah, so most people mail boxes to certain places, and really, it's funny because it's like we think of it as, oh, we're going into town, but there are just tiny, literally, it's like a B&B on the end of one of these sea locks, and that's all there is. But there's a town called Ullapool that's a real town. It has 2 outdoor stores, restaurants. So Ullapool is kind of like, I'm trying to think, it's like a bishop, There's the excellent organization called Hosteling Scotland. Oh, their hostels are great. And I stayed in them everywhere I could, like whether I was in the cities or on the trail. So Ullapool is a real town, kind of in the middle. That's the main real town. And then other places, there's another place, I'm going to forget the name of it. Well, it's because, you know what? So many places there have like 8 different names. So even on the map, it's like, oh, this is Shield Bridge. No, it's Glen Dew, or no, it's, it's Fine Hoglet. You have no idea. There's like all these different names. And it's because every little tiny community that's like 400 yards from the next one has its own name. So there was another place where there's definitely a store. I'm trying to think what it was called. But before the Falls of Glomach, which are the highest waterfalls in all the British Isles. That's a steep descent. Really cool.
You also mentioned that you don't have much of a desire to go across the pond for future backpacking trips. Why is that?
No, I do. They're just going to be shorter. I think doing the Camino would be cool.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I'll take to that or not. I mean, I've done all this wilderness stuff, and that's what's in my mind. But I sure have had a lot of people say, all the thru hikers I know who've done it, they love it. Mm-hmm. I would do that. I would like to do the Israel National Trail because I am a desert rat. That's actually my main thing that I do well and I love. I love hiking in the desert. So that I would do the West Highland Way. There's other stuff in Europe that I might do. I just don't know that much about it. I just don't see it. The main thing is I just don't want to be away from home for super long anymore.
Sure.
That's the thing. I've done that for a lot of years. Jody's put up with a lot. And I just said, yeah, I think I'm done with the super, super long stuff.
What's the camping like? You mentioned it's wet. Even in a dry year, it's wet. Is it tough to find dry campgrounds?
Well, here's the greatest thing. So just logistically, I wish I could remember the name of the law. It's in the story on the trek, but Scotland has this law like the public lands access, whatever. You can camp anywhere you want. You're not gonna camp in the middle of somebody's sheep herd, but you could. And it's such a different ethic. Everybody there knows. So like, I camped on private land all the time. It's just normal. There was one day I was coming down this steep hill and I was just going along and, we should talk about far out a little bit here, but like, don't always follow the dang app and the map because it's just, use your head. And I'm like, oh, looks like this is the way to go. Nice little trail, get down to the bottom. And then like an idiot, I looked at the probably ordnance survey and I'm like, crap, I'm a half mile off. But I could see where I needed to go. And it was like a half mile, not even a quarter mile across private land, past somebody's house. And I would get on the road where I'm going to the highway into Elipool. But I'm an idiot and I'm an American and I'm like, I'm going to get shot. I can't go on private land. So I walked all the way back up this hill and I got into these briar patches and it sucked. It sucked. I wasted like a long time and I got up and found the damn trail and went down. And here's the irony. It just took me into that exact same sheep pasture that I would have gone in if I'd just gone the other way. And I had this epiphany like, yeah, in America, you can get shot for that. In Scotland, nobody even looks at you. So this is a great thing. You can camp pretty much wherever you want. There's a military reservation right at the end. You have to check when their bombing schedule is. And you're not supposed to camp in there, understandably, but basically. And so I was able to find spots. I really was. You're not going to camp in the bogland. And, I was by myself a good chunk of the time. And I just pulled off. And I ended up buying a little bivvy over there. So I slept in a bivvy for the first time. Tiny, tiny thing.
I was literally just about to ask about that.
Yeah.
You've got that featured in one of your photos here.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, okay, so Jody knows that I'm an idiot. And basically, I'm just too enthusiastic. That's my problem. So my cousin, who's great, I really like her, she says, well, I have a Big Agnes Copper Spur too. I love that tent. And I was so excited. Like, she said, well, we'll just both sleep in that tent. Okay, that's the dumbest thing. Not because she's a problem or I'm a problem. It's just dumb. And Jody was like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, then I won't have to carry a tent and I'll carry the cooks. Yeah, that was a bad idea. It just, different sleeping styles and stuff. So when we decided to part, she had her power bank had gone out. So we took the train. We got to this little place and we took the train into Inverness so she could get a new one. And while I was there, I was like, I'm just going to get something. There was this super affordable little bivvy, I think it was a European company. Never slept in a bivvy before. I'm like, sure, this will work, because we knew by then that I was taking off in the morning, and it wasn't I was leaving her, but it was like, if you want to do what I'm doing, longer days, cool. If you don't, cool. And I really liked it. It was tough to get used to, like the first couple nights, because my God, you're basically like in a sarcophagus, but I got it. And it's a well-designed little thing. So the one I had has poles that crisscross over your head so that there's a little air, and it's got a zip for condensation and stuff. I really, really liked using it. I wouldn't want to do it all the time. And on the CDT this summer, I had the most giant, enormous tent that I've ever had because I got a deal on it. And that's really cool.
What'd you use?
Gossamer Gear 2.
Yeah. It's
huge.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was that big. It ended up causing problems like in these teeny little designated camp spots in Glacier and stuff. Like, it's too big. So I have a copper spur one now. I wanted to go back to a double wall anyway. But I loved the 2. I used it a lot, and it was great.
Anything else about this hike? Do you want to touch on any of the highlights along the way? Like standout points that you maybe haven't already mentioned?
There's so many. If you were a person that like is into wide open vistas, which is, it's like, that's what makes me go, you're going to love this.
Yeah. Because
you can almost always see for a long ways. And you might see whales. You might see gray seals. There's hardly any wildlife. You do not have to treat your water in Scotland. They say that. Now, they got sheep and stuff.
I was going to say, I'm seeing sheep in
there
your
are
photos
sheep,
here.
And there are also feral goats, but supposedly you don't have to. I mean, they say it in the guidebook. I didn't treat my water. I was fine.
Huh.
The Falls of Glomach are pretty amazing. They're like 400 feet high, and when you go down, it's like New Hampshire steep along these, wet falls. Really cool. The last couple days across this big moor all the way to the lighthouse. Oh my God, it's the most beautiful thing. You come to this beach, it's a Sandwood Bay, I think it's called. It's like Caribbean blue water and perfect sand and these like standing stones. It is just like, if you're into that whole kind of windswept Atlantic thing, God, it's great. They have bothies, which are buildings. They're 4-walled, they're not shelters, and you can stay in them. And you could, a person who's like used to through hiking, you absolutely could do it without a tent. You could go from town to town to bothy without ever putting up a tent. You'd have some longish days, but you could do it. Huh. And those are cool. Like, they're really neat. Like, they're old sheep barns and stuff and there's an association that takes care of them. And there's like little legends and stuff that go along with a lot of them. So I would say the last couple days were the most dramatic and cool. And I just, it was only 250, 240 miles, whatever it was. I just felt such triumph when I saw that lighthouse. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of the legends that went with them, since we're in spooky season?
Yeah. So the very last bothy, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to be able to pronounce the name, but it's like Stratha Lichnoyai, something. It turns out that in Scots Gaelic, it means a valley of the witch. And there was a man who lived there. It was his house for years and years and years. And he was like an artist, like an old guy. And he almost never went to town. There's a couple towns like within a couple days walk of there. And he just lived out there. And so there's like witchy stories that I think it's because of the wind or whatever. But yeah, so there were witchy stories. Some of them looked witchy. Some of them looked like kind of Hansel and Gretel, like on the edge of a super dark grove of trees. And you're like, that movie The Witch with Anya Joy Taylor? It came out like 4 or 5 years ago. Really creepy, like Puritans getting kicked out because they're, whatever, and then they go live in the wilderness. It's like that. So, but in a romantic way. I can't remember specifically, but there's whole books about the bothies and lots of information online. I think it's an up and coming trail, and yes, it's a challenge. But like I say, if you're an American, you've done one of these long trails here, you're going to be fine. If you get rained on the whole time, that will suck. I did not.
Yeah,
I got absolutely blasted by hail and rain, at times, but it wasn't constant.
I will say the photos in your post are probably more epic than anything I've seen from the West Highland Way.
Do you know what? Epic is a perfect way to describe it. And it's like it cheats at being epic. There's just no trees. And these big swooping bald mountains, Munros, they have this whole nomenclature, and my cousin knows it all because she went to school at St. Andrews for a while. Munros and Corries, and it's like if a mountain is 3,000 meters, well, no, it's not 3,000 meters, but whatever, 3,000 feet, it's a this, and if it's a that 4,000, it's a there. It is epic. Epic is a great way to describe it. I think I would encourage people to do it. Really, really easy to get there. Edinburgh and Glasgow are great towns. Inverness is a great town. You can do a Tatchall system. You could hike on the Isle of Skye. You could go to Orkney afterwards. It's a really good trip. I would do it again. although I'd be afraid that I would get worse weather. I lucked out.
Yeah. So you just mentioned Edinburgh to Glasgow.
Yeah.
Is there more on that to cover?
Yeah, so I finished sooner than I thought, and that's kind of normal. And I went to Inverness, and then I went down. Oh, I found out that these very good friends of mine from the PCT were hiking the Ayrshire Coast at the same time. So we found that out, and we're like, hey, let's meet. So we went to Edinburgh, and we spent the day together, and we were touring Edinburgh Castle, which sits on this big hump in the middle of the city. And I have to tell this story. This is just the greatest thing. And sorry, hashtag ponytails, you get this one. This is a good story. So you see my 9-watt hat here. So we're standing there, and Snakebait says, yeah, we got to get a picture and send it to the rest of our family. So there's this American family standing there, and he says, hey, sir, would you take our picture? And the guy takes a picture. And I just am chatty, and I said, oh, yeah, you're American. Where are you from? He said, Colorado. And I said, oh, me too. Where are you from? He says, 9-watt. I said, hang on a minute. And I pulled this hat out of there. And he's like, oh, wow, that's a crazy coincidence. Da, 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 da. Okay. And then I said, yeah, I grew up in Boulder. He said, oh, so did I. What high school did you go to? Boulder High. Yeah. He graduated in 78. I graduated in 1980. So we're having this conversation, and his wife is listening. And she just started to put something together. And she said, oh, are you the Clay Evans who used to write for the Daily Camera? I said, yep, that's me. And she said, hang on a minute. And she called her 30-something daughter over and said, your dad delivered this child into the world. All of that on top of Edinburgh Castle. And Snakebait literally yelled out, it's pony magic, it's pony magic. And I'm like, yeah, it was a super cool thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we were having tea and cookies afterwards, and I was like, yeah, I got a few more days. I don't know what I'm going to do. And his wife, Kale, they're just two of the most awesome people I've ever hiked with. She said, why don't you just walk from Edinburgh to Glasgow? And I was like, oh. Well, it turns out there's 2 towpaths that go along these canals. And then you go on one, and then you come to this weird-ass, high-tech...
Is a towpath just a more narrow footpath?
So in the old days, the boats were pulled by horses. It's the same as that towpath you go along on the AT after Harper's Ferry. So you hitch your horse, and it pulls your boat along. Well, it's no longer that, but there's these long, skinny boats, and they go, and people tour along in there. And there's like an asphalt path that goes alongside. So the first one, of course, I'm going to forget the names of them, but one is Firth and Clyde, 2 canals. And in the middle of it, 35 of the 65 miles in, there is the weirdest high-tech contraption. You know what a lock is, right? Mm-hmm. So you lower and raise the water. Yeah, they didn't want to do that because they're Scottish engineers, Captain, these engines just won't take it, sir, right? So they built this thing. It's a massive machine. It's like a Ferris wheel. And it picks up the boat 100 feet up, and the boat goes in. And then the thing turns and takes it 100 feet down to go to the next canal. It's like the weirdest Disneyland thing in the middle of nowhere. And then I hiked 35 miles. It was like Watership Down in the Shire. It was just really cool. It's just green and farms and beautiful. I camped near that thing, and then I just walked straight into Glasgow on this path. You can follow that path all the way to the other coast. I don't think many people do this. I had just sort of looked online to see, but it was actually a really cool thing to do. I kind of overdid it since it was all asphalt. There's like 65 miles in 2 days, and it was a great way to get to Glasgow. It was fun.
If you could go back and visit only one of those 2 cities, which one would you go to?
Edinburgh.
Why?
Yeah. It feels older and more continental. Glasgow is great too. And Hosteling Scotland has great hostels in both places. I cannot speak highly enough of that organization. It's just everything smooth, easy. Yeah, there's like more art and history and stuff in Edinburgh, but they were both great. Edinburgh is really near the ocean, so you can walk down to the ocean if you're willing to walk 4 or 5 miles,
And walk me through a little bit of the Scottish culture. Are people pretty open to the wilderness backpacking type of individual?
People out there on the trail totally know what Cape Wrath Trail is. And, a lot of Scots know about it, like in Inverness or whatever. But I met a lot of people who were like, really? Oh, that's cool. Really great, really open. People were super nice. There was no, I'm trying to think, I don't think I had any like bad experiences or people. we can talk about the CDT and just varying attitudes state to state toward hikers. But I hitchhiked once to get into Ullapool, and I mean, my God, I got a ride right away. And this guy was so excited and enthusiastic and took me around and showed me the whole little, I mean, the town's tiny, but I mean, really, really, really welcoming, awesome people. I just loved it.
Yeah.
So fun. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I think people should, and I think it's a thing that's beginning to happen. Like if you go on YouTube, you'll find people who've done it. And I ended up watching a bunch of, because I was nervous. Like they make it seem like, oh God, you know, you're going into wilds of Mongolia. It's not really that crazy, like most trails.
Yeah. Sweet. You've got me all juiced up for Scotland now. I want to do that.
I think it's worth it. You know what would be fun if you wanted a little longer is just do the 120 whatever miles on the West Highland Way and then add that. So you've got about a 350 or something.
Yeah.
That'd be a great hike.
Yeah.
Great hike. And you get your trail legs doing the West Highland Way.
Yeah. Sweet.
Totally worth it.
All right. Anything in the timeline here between Scotland and you cleaning up some miles on the Divide?
No, man, except to say that, you know, we talked about snow on the CDT last time. And as you guys know, and I know, being part-time Colorado, at least in my case, we had an incredibly snowy spring and summer. So my plan was to start at Monarch Pass in southern Colorado and just go north from there. And I was checking snow reports and wasn't going to happen. So I had hoped to basically start maybe late June. And when that wasn't going to happen, I just changed my mind. I said, okay, I'm going to fly up to Kalispell, you know, came here, fly up to Kalispell, and then southbound back. The plan was to finish the trail and finish at Monarch Pass from the Canadian border. So that's what I did. I started on July 7th.
And how'd that go? And I remember, so the last time we chat, you did the New Mexico section.
And up to Monarch Pass.
Yeah. And you raved about New Mexico.
Loved New Mexico. I still love New Mexico.
Yeah. You went in with, I think, somewhat tempered expectations, and clearly it exceeded your expectations. We chatted a little bit about this most recent leg, and we'll get to all of that. But yeah, I guess I'm just setting the stage for what you did last time. So yeah, walk me through. You started at the northern terminus.
Yeah. So there's so much to say, and I know we can't go on forever. So I'm going to give you the overall impression first. There's a couple, Julie and Matt Urbanski, and they wrote a book about their CDT hike that from 2013 when they hiked. It's a good book. It's just, they're kind of ultra people, so they're doing big miles. But Julie wrote something, they were alternating chapters, and the wisest thing I can say about the CDT. She wrote, if you hike the CDT alone, you will really hike the CDT alone. And that is my overwhelming impression, even of New Mexico, although it didn't feel quite the same. But I have to tell you, Montana, Wyoming, into Colorado for me is the most solitary experience I've ever had in my life anywhere, not just on the trail. Part of that's my fault, or, you know, part of it's my decisions. Like, I'm hiking my own hike and doing these things, but I really do think it is worth considering, because after that many days, okay, what I've been telling people, and I think this is kind of true, like in town, and you know, I'm like starving. I must freak people out. I'm like, oh, people, yeah, I just want to talk to them, you know. But on trail, a typical day, for real, I'm not making this up. If I had 10 minutes of interaction with humans, that was a lot. And there were many days when I had none. So I was walking all day by myself. I was dealing with whatever I was dealing with, weather, whatever I'm dealing with, you know, crummy trail, whatever, and nobody to like process it with. I mean, I'm garmining with my wife at night, and I'm really proud of myself that I can do that. But I have to tell you that after a couple of months of that, I think I felt my sanity fraying. I did. And I also know that I was just overwhelming, and I know I was just projecting waves of like human need every time I saw somebody. So, that is the main thing I would say about the CDT.
If you were going to do it again, would you make efforts to line up a hiking partner?
Yeah. I mean, I was just talking to my wife about that today. It was like, yes. I mean, I wish my very best friends from the PCT and the AT could have been with me. But I it wasn't like I didn't have opportunities. It was just choices I was making about miles. And, it's not like you get a gold lettered invitation like, ooh, would you like to join our family? So you kind of have to figure that out. But it's so strung out and you're so far apart and all this. It's like, it's not like the AT and the PCT where I just felt like you're sort of naturally around people and fall into it. But I think if I did it again, I would try to compromise more on my hiking my own hike and try to find, I met such great people. And I would have been happy. I wasn't unhappy. It was just hard to be that alone. So I would have done it differently. Yeah. If I could do it again.
Yeah. Because I know you've done a lot of trips where you go out solo. I know you've also had very social hikes. It's interesting to hear that this one ate at you more than those hikes.
It totally did. It was so different. I mean, I've done like 300 miles on the Great Plains Trail where I barely saw anybody. I was fine with that. But that's like 2 weeks, right? 2+ weeks, whatever. This was every single day. And I was really good. I really was good. I was fine. I mean, I can talk to myself. I say hi to the clouds and the squirrels and, you know, whatever. But like, I just started to feel myself becoming a little crazy. And I think what it is like I wanted somebody to commiserate with on a bad day. And I wanted somebody to share the like, oh my God, I've never seen a landscape this gorgeous. And there's nobody there. So it is my choice, obviously. The people I did meet were great, of course. Lots and lots of people had flipped in this year because of snow. And I think it was behind that big bubble, for one thing. And you just had PI here. Was he on the show? Or just, he's one of your big supporters, right?
I think it's Austin McDaniel.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It didn't catch his children.
Yeah.
He literally just hiked through.
Yeah.
He got off. What was it?
Yeah,
was that Monarch? No.
No, he hit Silverthorn.
Yeah.
We were texting. So, you know, he and I were just fell in naturally. We wound up on the same permit in Glacier and so forth. And, you know, why did I bring him up? I don't remember. But everybody I met was great. And there aren't that many hostels in any of the states, really. And there are varying attitudes toward hikers. There's a lot fewer people who know what you're doing or what it even is in Montana and Wyoming. Gets better in Colorado. Parts of New Mexico are better. But so, yeah, just overall, you know, it's an incredibly cool trail. I know it freaks a lot of people out because, I thought it was maintained really well. There are definitely some blowdown areas, but there's a guy, you should get him on the show. You got to look him up. There's a guy named Lorax. He's like this rebel trail maintainer, and apparently the CDTC knows of him, and they're sort of okay. They like made him go get his Sawyer certificate, whatever. He just is like the badass of the world. He goes and cleans up trails because he just wants to. He drives around in a blue kidnapper van, and he's a great guy. He's super cool to have on the show. So I met him last year in northern New Mexico, and he was working in the Wind Rivers, and thank God, because there was a place where he actually made a sign, and then he made a new trail with cairns and everything through this cow area, you know, and the sign's like, yeah, you could go through the horrific tangle of trees for the next mile or go this way. So here's this guy who but really overall, I want to compliment the CDTC and the Forest Service because it gets a lot of complaints, but overall, I mean, yeah, I had the worst blowdowns I've ever had on the PCT, and it was just a discrete event for 3 miles, unbelievable, like giant trees. So my standards are pretty high, but I think people do a great job.
Is that him?
That might be him. Yeah, I mean, I don't even really know. I mean, I hung out with him at the one shelter in the CDT in New Mexico, but cool guy. I'll track him down. Like we can find him.
Yeah,
really great guy.
Yeah. So you said part of what you're missing is the ability to commiserate with somebody on a bad day on the CDT. What constitutes a bad day? Is it weather? What events?
Weather is the main thing for me. And one of the ways I knew my sanity was fraying was because I was just yelling at clouds and screaming. Here's the fact of life. This is a truth that happens. You know you're all alone in the woods. The minute you start yelling like you're out of your mind, somebody's going to show up. And that happened every single time. So I was like in the Wind River, the first day I went in from Togety Pass, And then we had this low pressure system that sat on us for a week, and everybody was sick of it. And I happen to be coming out of Yellowstone and through this area where there's lots of pack trains. It was poop soup. It was horse poop soup mud. Sometimes, I'm not kidding, sometimes for like 10 or 12 miles. And it was driving everybody crazy. And the last day of that thing, I could see blue sky all around me. I knew it was supposed to be finally moving up. I had my own personal storm. It just followed me like for 4 hours. And I got so sick of it. I was like, just started cussing and screaming, which I don't advise. And I hear this, and this guy wheels up in an ATV with a dog on back, and he's like, just a dude, and he's like, I thought somebody was getting ate by a grizzly. I heard you shouting over here. I had to come. I'm like, no, I'm just mad. So I have to tell you about that night, though. So I went on this little alt because it's like you get up on this high plateau, just beautiful, and I set up my tent. Everything starts moving out, the weather. And the only night that I camped anywhere near somebody, this old guy that I'd passed came along, and he's like, can I camp here? It's like 50 yards away. So after a while, I was lying reading or something. He's like, hey, you got a lot of cattle around your tent. So I'm like, oh. So I looked out. I had like 30 heifers, and they were just around my tent. Thank God, like I didn't wake up and hear them because they're going, I would have thought it was a bear. So I thought that was so cute, and I took pictures. And cattle don't bother me. I worked as a cowboy. The next morning, they were still there. They like formed this protective circle of heifers around me on my very bad, horrible, no good day. And I was so charmed. I woke up and they're just like standing there. And I decided I was like their deity. I don't know why they were so fascinated. It was great. Yeah, it was great. So yeah, weather, and anybody can have a bad day. Right? You just have those days where you just aren't feeling it. I didn't have too many of those, and then I made a big mistake with insoles and messed up my feet a little bit in northern Montana. So whatever's going to happen. You're going to have a bad day. And it's just so comforting to have another human, any human, to just be like, oh my gosh. I would meet people. This lady who was hiking, I had met her in West Yellowstone, and she was hiking with another guy, and she got off to go to her son's Air Force graduation, and then she was northbounding, and I ran into her just like the day I was going into Colorado, or day before I went into Colorado, and she must have thought I was out of my mind. I was so happy to see her. Talked to her for like 15 minutes, and it made my day. I mean, it really did. So I need people, turns out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What other things did you do when you were losing your sanity? Because I liked the yelling at the clouds part. What other ways did you realize, oh shit?
Well, okay. I mean, I think my anger was over the top. Like, I was sitting in my tent just cussing. I don't want to be that way. And, I was aware of it, and I tried to make myself aware of it. What else did I do? There were times when I wanted to cry. I'm not much of a crier, but I actually had the thought like, dang, I feel like if I was like a crier and I could just like cry about, the storm that's been pissing on me for a week, or the mud, the horse poop mud, But so what else did I do? I just, are you asking what insane things I did or what sane things I did?
The insane for sure.
Oh my God. I thought about sex. That's not so insane. That's a distraction. We've talked about that before. And literally, if I'm having a bad day sometimes, I learned this on the PCT, like, okay, I'm going to start thinking about sex. And I'm really going to think about sex for hours. And it's a perfect anesthetic for me. It's really great.
Is this one long sexual thought, like one encounter?
It is a long, I get very detailed, and I just go on and on and on in my head. I can go for hours. And that is a legit technique. I don't do it often, but it's a legit technique that I know I need some distraction. I'll do that. And, sometimes I listen to music. I don't like to listen to stuff that much, but once I got into Colorado, I probably did this again. I did. I pushed myself too hard across Wyoming and Montana, but especially Wyoming. And it began to add up because I'm not a spring chicken. And I know this. I'm an idiot. I just did it again. So I began really beginning to fall apart in Colorado. I'd only taken 2 zeros, and I started taking zeros and zeros, and so I wore myself down. I'm trying to think, is there anything else insane I did? I mean, you can guess, we've discussed this before, where at a certain point after thinking about sex for 6 hours, you wind up. That might be insane. I don't know if it's insane, but it's a release and it's a distraction.
Are you...
Jody's going, oh my God,
Yeah.
again?
Are you winding
Are you guys
up?
going to talk about this again?
Are you winding up while walking, or are you like
Oh, yeah, I'm
going a
winding
few
up.
feet off trail and going behind
There's
a tree?
nobody there, so who cares? Nobody there.
Are you...
They need to make an alternate called the jerk off alternate.
Are you aware of the erotic blogger who's on the AT this year?
Yes, I am. She's super interesting. Yeah. I've had a little interaction with her. Not like that, Jody. Don't worry, Jody. You know why I had interaction with her. But yeah, I am familiar with her. Yeah,
Okay.
She's very frank. I like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what else? Jolly Ranchers. I actually would rely on Jolly, especially once I got to southern Wyoming, deep southern Wyoming and Colorado. I really did. I was worn down, and I think I was probably sick at that point. But so I was like grabbing onto anything, and I would be like, I have enough Jolly Ranchers where I can have 5 every day, until I resupply. And my God, oh yeah. I lusted after things. I listened to some books, nothing too crazy besides the really unreasonable screaming and yelling.
Is it surprising to you that you're still learning so much about yourself on the trail? Because your takeaway from, I think it was the last visit on the show, was that you were frustrated with like how magical the trail experience is, and then once you get off trail, that kind of evaporates. It's interesting to me that you had maybe somewhat of the opposite experience, or maybe you learned what confines exist for you in order to experience that dreamlike state on trail.
Yeah.
Is it surprising to you that you're still refining what makes pony on trail?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm just an idiot. Like, I do things that I know I shouldn't. Like, yeah, I was doing 30s, even 140-mile day, but 30s to 35s across Wyoming. I met these nobos, and I was saying, hey, yeah, you're going to find Wyoming pretty easy. And this guy's like, oh, yeah, I heard it's like the Oregon of the CDT. It is. Wyoming is conducive to fast. But I knew this from the AT years ago. Like, just because I can do more miles doesn't mean I should do it. But I'm an idiot, and I set my standard higher. And it was like, it used to be like, well, if I do 25 to 27, that's a good day. But once I start doing 30, then my internal idiot is like, well, now you got to do 30. Oh, you did 32. Oh, you did 36. It's just so dumb. And I knew it while I was doing it. So I am stupid, first of all. And I like that I'm still learning little tricks, like little just quirky things. But yeah, I'm still learning. As far as the social thing, and again, different people have different experiences. I know people had awesome trail families this year on the trail. People have that on the CDT. I did not. And the thing is, I know that part of what I love about this whole thing and what feeds me is that. And I didn't get it. I did not get it.
Did you have any standout favorite stretches of the trail? And not only just like, beautiful landscapes, but a day where everything was clicking. Maybe it's a beautiful landscape, good weather, and you're in a good mood.
Almost every day was like that. I don't want to make it sound like it was terrible. I just want to say cumulatively it started to wear on me. But I loved my hike for the most part. So coming across the Great Divide Basin, which, if you're from Wyoming, they just call it the Red Desert, okay? I like desert hiking. I loved it. I didn't like the last day into Rollins, but again, I think there were things going on with my body and stuff I wasn't aware of. But God, I loved it. And if you want to see forever, this guy, he's out there now. I guess he does, I think it's called Bikepacking Adventures. He's got a website or whatever. He's riding the CDT. His name is, Kurt. And Kurt rode up behind me, shocked the hell out of me because I don't ever see anybody. I'm out in the middle of nowhere in this desert. And
we started yelling at a cloud at the time?
I was not, because I was very happy. I was having a great time. The water, people freak about the water. The water's great, and there's some caches, and I had really good angel luck there. But like, we talked for a while, and I was like, oh, human. And he rides off. And, within like 10 minutes, I couldn't see him. And that kind of bummed me out. Like, oh my God, I have to walk? Because you can see so far. But I love that. So my first couple days, big miles for me, the biggest ever across the basin, I adored. Coming into, not the first day into the Wind River, which was the cow day, but the next day, I think, the next few days, it's spectacularly gorgeous. The CDT itself in the northern Wind Rivers is beautiful. If you take the actual CDT, it's not as great. So there are alternates you can do, knapsack call, you can do Cirque of the Towers, but I loved that. Glacier is spectacular. Glacier is also a big pain in the butt. They do not have their camping permit system working yet. We can talk about that if you want. But it's just mind-blowingly beautiful. And then coming into Colorado, this is my backyard, and seeing all the stuff that I know, and I've hiked so much of this trail already in different ways, on the CT, and just hikes and running and all this. So I'm trying to think. I think Grand Lake is a super cool place.
Yeah.
I went stand-up paddleboarding for the first time there on a Zero. Really like that. So many great days. I mean, really, truly. I know I'm making it sound like a bummer. It wasn't. It was just, cumulatively tough, but it is a great trail. And I adored New Mexico. I truly did. But I was kind of seeing the same people for the first 25 days, like 2 people I just saw off and on. And so I had that sense of continuity. And I was sad when I got off last year, because people I'd hiked through or knew, they felt like trail family, even though we weren't hiking together. And it just never pieced together that way for me coming south this year.
When we talk about alternates, a lot of the times there's popular alternates on the CDT that everyone will mention, oh, go do this one. Were there any alternates you took that aren't a common everyone does it alternate that you think more people should do?
I'm trying to think. So the cow day, that's at least on Far Out, and again, we can talk about Far Out if we want. That's listed as an alternate that I don't know that many people do, but my friend Wildlife had done it in 2021, and I saw a note. I'm like, sure, I'll go do it. That was that terrible day. It's just amazing. I like being on high plateaus where you can see forever.
What was it called, the alternate?
I'm going to forget what it's called. I could probably look it up while we're on here. It's just a tiny little something creek alternate in the Wind River. It's like the first, if you're southbounding, it would be kind of the first or second day you're going into the winds. And what else? Here's the thing. I get it. Some people, we can talk about Far Out and red line fever. I have issues about that too. But some people want to do the so-called red line in the official track. That's great. Fine. I think doing a Big Sky alternate was one of my coolest experiences. I mean, I had some road walking and this and that, but there's a little town called Pony on the edge of the Tobacco Root Mountains. I'm like, I'm going to Pony. And so I was dirt road walking, and then I just met non-hikers that were so cool. And then when I got back on Traily Trail and went into the Spanish Peaks section of the whatever wilderness that is north of Big Sky, was one of my most spectacular days. So I would say, if you want to go do the swoop way out west of Butte, the Pintlers are supposed to be great. There's lots of cool stuff. I didn't do it. Lots of people don't do it. Lots of people do a Big Sky alt. It is truly design your own dang thing if you want to do a Big Sky alt. And I loved my alternate. Absolutely adored it. I saw 2 other thru hikers, and that was it. But man, was it great! And then once I got to Big Sky, I still was doing it all the way down to West Yellowstone, and that was cool. So I would say that's an option, and a lot of people do it just because it cuts off. Do you really need 200 more miles of walking through lodgepole pine forest? It's up to you. It's totally up to you. So I think that's a really cool and viable thing to do. Most people do Spotted Bear, which is up in the Bob Marshall. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, if you're super hot on going into Rocky Mountain National Park, you'll do the regular trail. But if you just aren't, that doesn't, it doesn't go through that cool a part of the park. You can just pop straight down into Grand Lake. there's so many choices to make, and I love that about it. And I do think that a little what I call red line rigidity, some people do that, and I got nothing against it, but I have, do what you want to do.
What do you think is the reason behind red line fever, red line rigidity? I've heard a couple of different terminologies for this. What do you attribute the reasoning for that?
So it's a vestige of purism, which, in my opinion, I guess you could do on the CDT. You'd be an idiot to do it. You really would be dumb. You would be missing out on some amazing things. Like, if you go through the Black Mountains and all that instead of through the Gila, you are asking for a pain in the ass that's not that nice. Read Matt and Julie Urbanski's book, and I was like, oh, thank God I wasn't tempted to do that. I know a guy from Boulder who supposedly was doing it this summer, but so, it's a vestige of that notion, and then people like the idea that it's I'm hiking 3,000 miles. Well, if you do the far out red line, you're not hiking 3,000 miles. You're doing about 2,900.
Yeah.
So you actually have to do alts if you want to add up to 3,100. And I guess it's that. I think it's sort of an overlay of other trails, and it's fine. Everybody gets to do what they want, but it's so loosey-goosey, and you really do have choices, and I think it's kind of fun. Have you had Paul Mignanti on the show?
Not yet. He's on the list.
He's such a great guy.
Yeah. He's
the master of just like, find your own route. It's such a cool thing to do. And that was part of the appeal for me when I did my Big Sky. I'll be honest with people, I became sort of all business on this trail. Like, you know what? I want to get it done. And I enjoyed it. I really did. But I was pretty focused. So I didn't need the extra couple 100 miles. And I was really happy to do it. I just think some flexibility. Just remember, everybody, there's nobody giving you a merit badge. And if you do that, more power to you. Great. But there's so many different options.
Yeah.
And you will miss some cool stuff if you just stick with the red line, and you will go through some awful stuff too.
It's funny that you mentioned the 3,000 mile thing about the CDT, because Owen's currently working on an article titled, this is the working title, I don't know if it'll come out this way, but 3,000 miles my ass.
Yeah, not.
Yeah, and he's communicating with Teresa about this, so we'll have something about this pretty soon.
Well, people that you and I both know were like very excited about getting 3,000, and I was like, I don't mean to disabuse you, but just check it out. Like, add those states up and see what it says.
Yeah.
And that means you're not going to do the Gila, which was one of my favorite parts of the CDT. Mm-hmm. And I should own up front here. I have to confess, I'm not done. I stumbled and staggered the T.S. Eliot poem, The Hollow Men. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper. I whimpered at the end because we can talk about it. But so I have what one hiker I got to know a little bit, elegantly called mop up. I have a little bit of mop up to do. So I told Jody I was going to get a tattoo for the CDT when I'm done, and I'm not ready to get the tattoo.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So what was the cause of now needing to mop up some miles?
Well, so I've talked about what an idiot I am, and I pushed myself too hard, and I shouldn't have. And then I'm also an idiot. So on the CT, #ponytails, I was waiting at a storm in Breck, my first hike, and I met two northbounders on the CDT. Awesome people, First Man and Focus. I ran into Focus on the AT the next year. And they were just like giving me old hand CDT. And they were like, we don't even care about lightning. We just walk across the ridge tops and lightning. I walk across ridge tops and lightning now. I do. I thought, oh, you guys suck. But I think there's something wrong with people who get to the CDT or something. And one of the things they said is, I don't really treat my water. I need to be smarter about that. So I thought I was treating when I needed to, but I was not that careful. And I had to come over the divide. I mean, it's amazing that this happened this way because I knew something was wrong. I was wearing down and being tired and something was wrong. And I was texting Jody and I said, I guess I could have Giardia again. And she's like, you probably do. And I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of in my backyard. I can go over the divide. That next day was by far the hardest physical day of hiking I've ever done, except when I had Lyme disease on the AT because I was sick. And I wound up having Giardia and two kinds of E. coli. So that means not only was I drinking beaver poo, but also cow poo in 2 varieties.
I assume the Sawyer will take out E. coli.
But I use Aquamira drops, and it's good it'll take out Giardia too. I just am lazy. Yeah. I was like those guys. I mean, again, I don't want to overstate it, but like, it's a little arrogance is what it was on my part. But it's like, yeah, I'm an old hand. I'm good, you know. I think there's a little bit of that kind of carefree attitude among a lot of CDT hikers. Because let's face it, by the time a lot of people, not everybody, get there, they've done a bit of this. And I was just an idiot. I don't know where that happened, but I gave myself quite a bad case that needed a couple rounds. So there was that. And then I was like, fine, I'm going to recover from this. I went to Boulder, and then I said, okay, well, I'm going to sort of not really slack pack myself, but I'm going to take this car that I have, and I'm going to do it in a way that's, you know, have the car and hitch back and do whatever. And I got to the top of Hope Pass, and I was completely wasted.
That's a tough spot too. That's a difficult climb.
I buzzed up it, but it was cold. There was frost, and when I got up to the top, when the bad day that I had coming over the divide, I was dizzy. I never stop on uphills. My thing is go uphill and don't stop. And I had to stop like a dozen times. I was going maybe 1.2 miles an hour, and it wasn't that bad at Hope Pass. But as I was going down the other side, I was like, you know what? I'm not up for this. My body is. This is not going to be fun. So I got down to Winfield, and I hiked. That was boring. I hiked out on a dirt road to the highway and just hitched back to my car, and I have mop up. So I have a little bit of, especially just true mop up around Silverthorne area, and because I've already done Gray's Peak twice, including in winter, and I've been up the Argentine Spine, and I've done Georgia Pass twice. So I was going to do the Silverthorne alternate. I didn't do all of that. So, and then I need to finish Collegiate West. So I've got 60 miles of Collegiate West.
Yeah. It's a good spot to look forward to.
Yeah.
It is, and I was really sad that I wasn't up to it, because it's gorgeous, and I did Collegiate East when I did the CTs. I've been back there. I've climbed all the 14ers but one. But I was sad because I was excited to go, and I just couldn't. My body couldn't do it.
Yeah. And walk me through the recovery from Giardia and 2 bouts of E. coli. I know it's a pretty heavy dose of antibiotics, and those are intense antibiotics.
Yeah.
How are you feeling today?
So I think I still have probably a little bit of symptoms left. I just noticed today. I got it last summer too, after I got off the trail, and it was horrible last summer. Like I actually did go to the ER last summer. I didn't need to do that, but I was pretty sick. I mean, weakness is the weirdest thing. But Jody's like, and I was skinny. I've already gained weight back, but like I was skinny. I don't think I've ever been so skinny. And then Jody's like, yeah, and you have these bugs inside you just eating everything. So it was rough. Like even to go for a 3-mile walk was not fun. And the drugs, I took the round of drugs, and I was hoping to get back to the trail, so it was like, still having symptoms. Went back, fortunately was able to. God, collecting your own feces for that too is not very fun.
I've done that a few times. It sucks.
Yeah, it really sucks. And you know what? I'm going to invent a little scooper system that's not so disgusting.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're just having to like try to wipe it off, and it's gross. And I had to do that twice.
And they want you to take it from different parts of the turd.
Yeah, and it's like you've got this bowl, and with Giardia, your stuff smells truly awful.
Yeah.
So you're just like up close and personal with diseased feces. That's not that much fun.
Yeah.
Poop story. # poop story. But yeah, so I think it's going to take a while. I've been running, but I feel it. I feel it. Like I still feel it.
Have you done anything in terms of probiotics or trying to? Yeah.
Well, just mine. I'm not like fancy, expensive ones, but I've been drinking kefir and eating Activia every night, and I think as far as that goes, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think that's the right thing, by the way.
Yeah,
and I think it can take a little bit, but from my understanding, I think trying to introduce probiotic foods is the best way to go about that, because I think most of the probiotics that you can get at the grocery store basically placebos.
Yeah. And you can, like, people are like, oh, get this one. It's like $400. Like, nope, I can eat yogurt.
Yeah.
So mostly I'm okay, but I'm not fully recovered. I know I'm not. And it's my fault. Everything, for anybody who's listening, any bummer that I'm conveying about the CDT is 100% my fault. I want you to know that. It's my fault that I got sick. It's my fault that I overdid it. It's my fault that I didn't make more of an effort to, like, get a family together.
Yeah.
So do not get put off the CDT. It's a great trail, and I'm an idiot. That's all we have to say.
Fair enough. We've all been there before.
Yeah. I do think, though, like, sometimes I'll tell Jody, like, it's weird, but I remember when I come do this, like, I'm a little nervous when I start, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. Like, boom, give me a few days and it's second nature. And then I can be so dumb. Like, why am I so dumb? And I think my theory is it's because I'm too excited and too enthusiastic, and I get rushed and impatient. That's my excuse.
I mean, Jabba has fallen into this each of the last 3 years.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
He does the exact same thing.
Exactly. Yep.
His usually manifests as an injury.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm curious, when you're overdoing it, how does that manifest? What are the symptoms?
Yeah, so for me, it's not usually an injury, which is awesome, but it's fatigue. It's like fatigue. So I always say, and this is true until this trail, but only a couple nights, I've never woken up on trail unhappy to be on trail. It did happen a couple times. But what really happens for me is, like, morning is, I love getting up early and bam, baby, if I can get 20 by 12, and I often can, that's my jam. I love that. And when I knew something was going wrong, you know, far southern Wyoming, getting into Colorado is like at 8 o'clock, my legs are fatigued and I can do it. I'm going to still make the miles and climb the climbs, but it's just not the same. And I'm not timing myself, but I know I slowed down. And then again, like, my mental condition phrase. So I get much less patient, much less emotionally resourceful, and I start doing things like yelling and cussing and being mad, and that is a sign that I am worn down. Yeah.
Did you ever try taking a couple zeros and just being a glutton in town and just?
That's so stupid. I took 1 0 in Butte, and I took 1 0 in Rollins. That was stupid, but it's such a pain in the butt to get off the trail in the CDT, and that was my main thing. I just didn't really want to do that. So that was a mistake. I know this from the damn AT. I should have taken more. And once I hit Colorado, I had to. I took 2 zeros in Grand Lake. I took 1 0 in Steamboat. I just had to. I knew. I met a guy there in Grand Lake, and he was having the same problem. I mean, for him, he thought it was nutritional, but he was just run down. And he ended up being like, you know what? I'm just going to finish next year. So, kids, this is not an easy trail. I think Colorado is the hardest state of all the 3 big trails because it's whatever it is, 700 or 800 miles of this constantly and high altitude. It's yes, Maine's steeper, although you'll hit some steep stuff. New Hampshire's steeper, but I'm sorry, Colorado. And I saw a lot of comments on Far Out, like, I hated Colorado. You know, it's tough.
Yeah,
it's brutal.
I've encountered a number of CDT hikers going both north and south for day hikes, Colorado Trail, basically you name it. And more often than not, it seems like the life has been sucked out of them. Just to corroborate what you're saying is I think it wears away at people.
It does. And here's the thing. On either side of Colorado, you have some pretty cruisy, if you don't mind the desert, you've got some pretty cruisy miles because New Mexico, and then right at the end you get into the mountains, and then in southern Wyoming you've got, you know, I don't know how many 100 miles, but you know, before you hit the Wind Rivers, it's desert, but it's pretty fast and cruisy. So do not underestimate Colorado, folks. I would say this because I was trying to hit my big miles and stuff in Colorado. Dumb. I had no choice when I hit New Hampshire and Maine on the AT. I had to cut back. And I probably should have consciously cut back in Colorado. I was bummed because weather. I'm sorry, I grew up here. like late August and September is the greatest time of year, and it just kept raining. And I mean, it rained for 4 hours straight, as hard as any rain I've ever been in. And my tent completely wetted through. I woke up the next morning with pools of water. And the next morning, and I was tired, I had to go up this thing called Parkview Mountain for Sobos on the CDT. It sucks. It's straight uphill. The wind was blowing like 50 miles an hour. There's like an old radio station shack up there so you can get out of the wind. And I was just standing up there trying to dry my tent, but there were clouds all around. It wasn't getting dry. And then I peeked out, and I was so thrilled. This woman that I had met on the pass that goes down into encampment tailgate was coming up a hill. There was a human. We hiked together. And it was the most amazing thing. And she's like, yeah, my tent wetted out too. So it just... What the hell with the weather in Colorado this year? It's just La Nina or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It bummed me out.
It was a weird year. Previous guest, Melissa Goodwin, she did the CT this year, and she texted me, I think, from Breckenridge.
Yeah.
Saying that, like, she's still pretty early on in the CT, and saying that she was contemplating getting off.
Yep.
I had to give her a pep talk being like, this weather is not typical.
It's not.
It's going to get so much better. I didn't actually track what the weather did thereafter. She finished the trail, but yeah,
good for her.
To just go off your point.
It was
a tough year.
It was a tough year just as far as that goes. And then, like I say, I had great weather, really, except for my first day in Glacier. I just got hammered by a hailstorm on a pass, Red Gap Pass, just my first pass. I brought an umbrella for the first time ever. I was so glad I had it because, like, I was using it to shield myself to put on my rain gear on this pass. But we had that week-long low-pressure system that kind of sat over northern Wyoming. That sucked. Everybody would. I wasn't the only one yelling at the rain.
Yeah.
Everybody hated it.
Yeah.
And the poop mud is for real. It's like mud is mud, but when the horses come through, and I'm talking like multiple pack trains of 20 mules or whatever, they just chew it up, and it becomes, it's unbelievable. And it's hard going. This is a pain in the butt.
Yeah. You also mentioned earlier briefly that you were frustrated by the glacier permit system.
Oh my God. Yellowstone does it right. Yellowstone's got this incredible software. It's so much fun to watch the guy pick, you have to pick your campsites and what nights. That sucks for thru hikers, but you have to do it. It's like the Smokies, whatever. Although Smokies, yeah. So Yellowstone's awesome. It's a big screen, and the guy sits you down, and he can just click on these campsites, and it tells you how many miles and then how many availability. It's just... Now, I should have paid closer attention because I told the guy, like, yeah, I want to be doing 25 miles a day. Oh, really? What else? I'd like to swim if I could. Well, he focused on the swimming, so I had like a 22-mile day and then a 6-mile day. But because they have that system, you can go in to Old Faithful Village and go to the office, and they can change it for you. It's great. Glacier doesn't have that software, and I think they just started this reservation system. It is a disaster. So it's manual, and it's nice ladies trying to help you at 7:30 in the morning. And you have had to do your homework. Like, you have to know, like, I want this one, this one, this one, this one. And then they're not available. And then you get a nutty itinerary. So I ended up getting a ride at 6 a.m. to the place where you get your permits so we can be first in line. And I had, because I'm me and I like to look at maps, I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, which is fairly ambitious for literally starting. And the lady's super nice, and she's like, well, if I have to do it for every one of you guys, it's going to take forever. Can I just put the next 3 guys on your permit? And these were guys that I had gotten a ride in with, so I knew them a little bit. One of them was P.I., who you know. Mm-hmm. And I turned to him, I said, you guys are welcome to be on this permit, but look at it and make sure that this is something you want to do, because it's a little ambitious. There was one awful day because there was no availability that was going to be like a 32-mile day. In Glacier, that's a lot. You were going up and down. So everybody said, okay. They kind of let me do it. And, 2 of the guys, including P.I., they did it, but it was rough. And then one of the guys, he just wasn't up to it. So I found out later from talking to rangers there, like, I could have had my permit and left the other 3 blank, and she could just pop anybody on my permit she wanted. Like if there was a weekend hiker and they're like, oh, we want to go to Poya Lake on this night, she could put them on my permit. So she was trying to make work easier for herself. I don't blame her. But it was dangerous. Like the one guy, okay, I came into Poya Lake this was the day I got, hailed on. I saw a grizzly bear and a male moose, right? Coming in. Awesome, right? He came in at 11 o'clock. And the campsites are teeny. They're for 4 people. They don't tell you. You can find out later. They mean 2 tents and 4 people. Well, we had 4 people in 4 tents, including an apartment-size Gossamer Gear 2, which was a lovely luxury, but rather large. So, and then you get people, our first night there, who were like whatever weekend hikers who wouldn't share. There were people with 1 tent in 1 site. And I said, gosh, is there any way we could set one of our tents? Or, no, I ain't doing it. And then there were 3 women who were in 1 tent. I said, gosh, could we move? We just want to be, it's a terrible system. And so if you're the superintendent of Glacier, just go buy the software that Yellowstone has. It's so much easier on your people and us. So, yeah, it was terrible.
You'd think that the National Park Service would have the software and it would be available to any of the parks.
I agree. And so I asked about that, I think in Yellowstone. I said, okay, so you guys are each your own administrative unit. Yep. You each get your own budget. Yep. So that's why, but it's dumb. I mean, the software, whatever they had in Yellowstone is cool. I'd love to play with it. There's a guy at the West Yellowstone office, I'm Bob or something. That's what he likes to do all day. So he smells a thru-hiker coming through the door. He's like, oh, come on back. You go back in his little huddle, his hovel back there. And he's like, yeah, he loves it. And then he just grills you. He takes like a half hour so he can talk to you about thru-hiking. But it's a fun toy to play with. And the poor ladies in Glacier are like, oh my God, how many in line this morning? Glacier, get your act together. Everybody's pissed off about it. And I honestly think it's dangerous. And there was a closure of one of the front country sites because of the bear incident. And then Ptarmigan Tunnel, which goes to that, was still closed because of snow. Luckily, I met a British kid, so we got our permit. Met a British kid back at the hostel, Looking Glass Hostel, East Glacier. They know what we need. Great place. Base camp, totally where you go. Looking Glass Base Camp, go there. And I met this British kid, and he said, what you do if you've got a bad itinerary, like a 32-mile day, was causing me to go 5 miles uphill off trail and then 5 miles back. And I was like, don't do that. Right where I was, he said, just get on the shuttle and go to a front country site. And there's an awesome lady there who's like the honcho of that front country site. And she loves hikers. And it was great. So I just didn't use my permit for the way off trail thing. And I ended up with like a 23-mile day, which was fine. She gave me a ride back to where I'd gotten off trail at 6 a.m. We got, as soon as we pulled up, we saw a grizzly. I mean, it was great. So there are ways to get around it. You have to be smart. Nonetheless, Glacier, get your act together. What a bummer.
Yeah.
People were mad. Everybody was pissed about it.
It's interesting.
Bad system.
I know you're also one of our most active gear testers. Is there anything that you're using on this trip that was new that you want to rave about or complain about?
So look, I really like the Gossamer Gear 2, and it's super light, and I found that I really liked having that room. I really, really did. I have been thinking for a while, though, that single wall tents. So I went to a Big Agnes Copper Spur 1. And I love that tent. It kind of takes me back to my REI quarter dome days. I really like it. It's slightly heavier. It's way less room, but I truly, truly love it. I love topos. I love topo shoes. I cannot speak highly enough of topos. And there were a lot of them on the trail this year. I think they're coming up. I have to be careful not to speak ill of Brand X, but Brand X is owned by a giant corporation. And I think it shows. I think Topo, for now, is still doing a really great job. So I loved my Topos. I mean, was madly in love with every pair I used. 3 pair. Madly in love. I still love my BioLite 350 headlamp, USB rechargeable. I know everybody followed in their footsteps, and now, Petzl and everybody has USB, but that is a great thing. I used a Gorilla this time instead of a Mariposa. Basically, I use up a Gossamer gear pack on one long hike. I don't care. I don't know what it is, but it's like a part of me. It's like my Siamese twin. The most comfortable pack ever. They're not as durable as a lot of packs, but I just don't think I could bear going back to anything else. I'm not kidding. It's just an incredibly comfortable pack. Yeah. I mean, it's like a part of my body. I love it. It actually makes my back feel better.
Yeah. The Gorilla is 50 liters?
50 now.
Yeah. It was 40 before, right?
It was 40. And, I would probably struggle a little with 40. I still can't figure out, I can't figure out why. Because A, I'm an idiot. And I have just still food problems. So because Jody dehydrates food for me and then we send it, I don't want her sending it every, 5 days. So I carry more meals, and they're a little bulky. And then between paranoia over not having food, I carry too much food, damn it. I just do. And I think if I dialed that in better, I could probably handle a 40. I probably could anyway, but I like having the 50. Mm-hmm. I do. I do. And I just love that pack. Really love the pack. Like, I see people with awesome other packs, but I'm just not tempted.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
So those things are great. I'm just trying to think. I finally broke down and got an MSR pocket rocket. Okay. It's the gold standard. I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was. I just thought, it's a little lighter. I don't know what it is, but it's faster and stronger, and it is a quality piece of gear. So I love my Snow Peaks and stuff that I've used over the years, but I'm sorry I didn't realize that thing is the one for me.
Yeah. I have one of the really light Snow Peak stoves, and I like it because of the weight, but yeah, definitely if you're going with something like that, it just boils water so much faster.
It does, and I don't know what they do, but it really goes fast, and that is great for me, you know. So yeah, those are things that I know. I'm still gonna compliment the Lecky poles that I swiped from my mom. So these things must be 25 years old now. They're just so great. I would never have a carbon fiber pole. There's just an aluminum pole that is bomb proof. I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use Lecky as well.
Yeah, they're so great.
Yeah.
It's a ladies model too, and I'm like, yep, I love it.
You usually have some form of a hot take, something spicy. Is anything like that bubbling inside of you right now?
Let's talk about Far Out.
I was going to say that seems to be your trigger word of the episode.
Okay, so I don't like even calling it Far Out, but I realize that I'm talking about Far Out and not Gut Hook anymore. So evidently that the guy who came up, it belongs to somebody else now. I don't know who it is. But I'll tell you what, they're trying to make money, whatever. It's a bigger company, I imagine. I don't know that much about it, but they dropped the ball on the CDT maps this year. I mean, they really did. So people with iPhones, including me, had this persistent problem where the actual red line and all the background map would just disappear when you tried to expand it.
That happened to me on the Ozark Highlands trip.
Yeah, it happened a lot. And all you could see was the icons, and you can work that out if you're not an idiot, and you should have paper maps or at least photos of paper maps, right? But that's really annoying because you need that granular sometimes. You really do, to be like, am I going right or left? And inexcusable. I emailed them a couple times, and they just lied to me. They lied to me. Not only did they lie to me, but then one day I opened it up and I just didn't have access anymore. Oh. So the next chance I got, I'm like, what the heck? Well, you don't own this map. And I'm like, I do own the map. How would I have been able to use it last year and this year? Well, we don't show any record. I'm like, okay. So I was fuming and I bought the dang thing again. Still didn't work. And then I realized I nice woman, I wasn't a jerk, but I just said, hey, here's a way you can go last year and look at the comments. You can see my comments, right? All the way across New Mexico. And she said, yep. And she refunded my money. She could see I did own the dang thing. So, whatever. But and you know what? It's out of date. It is wrong in places, not majorly, but they're just wrong by like years. So you'd come across a place where, and again, I guess my basic advice here is do not bow down to the red line. Don't. Use your common sense. There's a little place in Montana where you come up and you can see nice trail going ahead, and you're like, you see a CDT thing and you're like, huh, well, but far out says I go to the left up this thing. And if you're dumb like me and a bunch of other people, you go up the hill. It's a waste. It's a PUD, and you get up there and there's nothing, and then you have to bushwhack back down because that reroute was made 3 years ago. They've not bothered to send anybody out, which is what you have to do. You have to spend the money to get somebody out there and have them see. And if you're hoping like on the PCT and the AT to see little icons for awesome camp spots, every once in a while. It's very thin. It doesn't work that well. They were dishonest with me, to tell you the truth. They were just dishonest. They said, oh, well, we haven't heard anything about this. And that was a lie. I knew a lot of people that had that. That's a pretty inexcusable error. And yes, you should have paper maps. And generally I do. And I had Bear Creek survey maps that I'd photocopied and this and that. But I didn't always have those. Maybe I hadn't got, whatever. And so you are responsible nonetheless. There are errors there that could get somebody into trouble.
Yeah. And it's not like the maps are cheap. And when you're spending that much money, there should be an expectation of a reasonable amount of accuracy.
I don't know this, so it's pure speculation. But my sense is whatever this company bought it and said, hey, here's this thing. We make money off it. Yes, you do. But they're busily trying to launch their subscription service. I get that. That's your thing. I don't like subscription, but whatever. And I think they're thinking about money, and they are not serving their current customers in a way that potentially could put somebody in danger.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty mad about that. And I've heard of Onyx on this show. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'll start using something else. I ended up having to use Gaia and even Ordnance Survey, the British thing for my Big Sky Alt. It was frankly, it didn't have the information that Far Out did, but I also didn't have the problems. So I Far Out, you probably don't listen to this podcast, but you need to step up. And I left notes like that in several places. Yeah.
Good. That's
really
important feedback, and I hope they hear it.
They absolutely know, because multiple people had the same problem, and Chaunce, you had it.
Yeah, I got lost a lot it's kind of funny watching my Ozark Highlands Trail videos, because I got lost a lot because the way that they mark the trail, there's some where it's just like hairpin turns and it looks like it would go straight. But the thing about the Ozark Highlands Trail is a lot of water crossings. And so there was a lot of times where I couldn't figure out to go when crossing the water, because it wasn't just a straightforward trail goes straight through the water. Sometimes it would be like you go in here, you come out over there. And that was the one thing was like, if I'd get lost, I'd go to zoom in to see like, okay, where am I compared? And when you zoom in a certain amount, the red line disappears.
Yep.
And even if you have the downloads, and that was something where I thought it was just my map glitching, but in some instances when I'd lose the trail, it added a significant amount of time that had I had the map able to use, it would have significantly expedited.
If you zoom back out, does the map reappear?
It does.
Yeah, but you're at that point you're so far zoomed out that your arrow is pretty much near the red line, because you're zoomed out far enough where the scope of it is you're basically there. And then you zoom in to see, okay, well, how far off of it? Am I to the left? Am I to the right? And then the red line disappears, and then it's just that grid.
Yeah. It's next to useless. I mean, it really is a bad flaw. The other thing that they told me was, well, it's an Apple problem. I said, Apple is the largest corporation on earth. You guys have to make the fix. Apple doesn't have to make the fix. And I did hear from guys who don't have Apples that they weren't having that problem. But it's not Apple's problem. It is not Apple's problem. It's you guys, and we paid for this. We're your customers. I get it. You're all, having a wet dream about your subscription dollars that are coming in, but get off your ass and serve your current customers. I'm pissed about it.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. Sweet. Well, this is never a disappointing conversation.
Really?
With Mr.
I feel like
Connery.
I've been so boring.
No, God.
it's been
You've
great.
never once been boring in
Okay.
your life. I'm sure of it.
Somebody called me last night edgy, and I'm like, okay,
you
I
could say
guess that's it.
edging.
Okay. I'm edging. That's what I was doing on those days when I just thought about sex for 6 hours. I was totally hiking edging.
What does edging mean?
Hedging. We're gonna call it hedging.
Yeah.
That's my new word.
Hiking
For
edging.
it. So edging is when you bring yourself close to the verge of orgasm and stay there. Ride that line for a long time.
Huh.
Tantric, Karma
Yeah.
Sutra-ish. Yeah.
Wow. Learning
And now,
something new.
I'm introducing to your audience the term hedging.
Hedging.
Hedging,
You can
okay.
hedge while hiking.
Yeah.
I'm a through hedger. I'm a long distance hedger, you
Yeah.
guys.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect place to put a bow on it. So what's on the agenda for you? I know we're at the end of the hiking season. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll
so I really do think I don't have aspirations to do big long trails anymore. I don't want to do the North Country Trail. I have 4 friends who've done it, and I'm just not interested. I don't want to do the Tararoa Trail. I have 3 friends who've done it. I don't want to do it. I just don't feel like it. And I've been away from home. My wife's been super patient. So, I learned on the on the Cape Wrath Trail that I can have a great time on a 250-mile trail. And I love the desert, so it wouldn't surprise me if I hit Arizona sometime. Grand Enchantment, those kinds of things, a little bit shorter. I do want to do the Israel National Trail just because I love the Israel desert. I know that's controversial for some people, but I really love the Israeli desert.
should hit up Abstract.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
She didn't do all of it. I forgot what percentage she did, but she's done some.
I've met Israelis on trail who I'm friends with through social media, and they can point me the way too. So I want to do shorter stuff, and then I've really tried. First of all, I want to say, I feel a little bit of mourning. Yes, I have some mop up, but my big long Triple Crown length trails, I think I'm at the end, and it's closing of an era for me. I love it. There's something about that length and that amount of time that really does it for me. And my AT hike was kind of this crazy patchwork. My CDT hike, was over 2 years, and whimper not a bang. And the PCT crystallized like the perfect through hike for me. I would just say to people, if you're going to pick one and you're only going to do one, it's not my favorite. The CDT might be my favorite, but I will say that I think that the PCT is the one that you get kind of the mix of all the good stuff. You get the social, and you get the vistas, and you get the complications. And so, and I did a lot of bike touring when I was a kid. I met a lot of Great Divide Trail riders up north in Montana, and I met this guy, Kurt. I think his website is Bikepacking Adventures, I think it is. And he was riding the CDT. He has to do alts for the wilderness, and I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll do some bike packing. I don't think it'll be super long, but I want to do some, and I've been talking with a friend of mine about doing parts of the Great Plains Trail, which we've talked about, on a bike next year, and I want to hike more of the Great Plains Trail. We've got that. I'm on the board of the Great Plains Trail, greatplainstrail.org. And, it's so new, it's not even a thing, but it's a cool thing. There's amazing country. And basically, more or less from the central panhandle of Nebraska all the way to Manitoba is very walkable now. And you might have to do a longish day in North Dakota to kind of get to public land, but I encourage people to look at it. I would love to see somebody bike pack the whole thing. And we only have one person who's actually hiked the whole thing. So it's out there. Hey, people want an FKT? Luke Strider Jordan has it, and he did it, but he wasn't trying to break a record. So I want to do more of the GPT. And you know what? I'm a writer, and I've got so many things to write. So I want to try to get back to just like really thinking of myself as a writer. I also, I now live by the ocean part of the year, so I want to start stand-up paddleboarding, and it's a little weird. I got little flashes on this trail, probably between the loneliness and just recognizing, oh, I'm kind of coming to the end of this, of like mortality. I don't have that many years left. Like, I'm kind of old. So it's been a little like, I have a little grief and mourning about this push and just this inevitable thing once I did the PCT, like, yeah, I'm going to do the CDT. It's driven me for 8 years, and I love it. It's driven me to see amazing places, meet incredible people. The best, I met great hikers, but I didn't see that many. The people I met off trail, like the Winnebago people and whatever, I met so many cool people. Really amazing people on this trail who weren't hikers.
Yeah. Well, you're very young at heart. That's for sure. I know for a fact you won't have any regrets on your deathbed with how adventurous and full of what. Not. I don't want to talk about your deathbed. I'm just saying, like, you don't have to worry about leaving anything on the table. You're better at adventuring than just about anybody.
I am, and I'm proud of that. I am proud of it. Like, I like being able to do what I can do, and my body. We've talked about this. My body loves it, and my brain loves it. Like, they're really in another world. If I weren't, if I didn't have an awesome family life that I want to be part of, and dogs and, and writing and stuff, I really would just walk all the time. I do want to say this. For me, personally, on the CDT, I came to that point where I met this woman named Cushy while doing a section hike with Mighty Blue on the AT in 2019. And her name is Cushy, so, she likes cushy stuff. And she said, I really like the walking, but I'm not that into the camping. That's kind of where I landed on this trail. But that probably is more a function of just loneliness. You know what? And one of the reasons I did big miles, especially across Wyoming and southern Montana, is like, what the hell else was I going to do? There was nobody to talk to. I mean, sure, I could stop at 3:30, and then what? I could hedge all night long, but that gets a little old, You get chafed from that. So I walked because I didn't really have anything else to do. I didn't have that utterly satisfying feeling of being in camp and your friends come in. I never got that.
You mentioned bike packing. You're pals with Ryan Van Duzer, aren't
Oh,
you?
yeah.
Yeah.
I've known Ryan since he was in high school.
Well, you've got good access to a smart brain for that sport.
Well, my friend and I was just talking, I went swimming with her yesterday in a lake, and we're like, oh, God, well, because I mentioned, and she does a lot of that, and she's like, we'll get Ryan to come along, and he'll video part of it, and blah, his mom can support. I mean, anyway, I've known Ryan since he was in high school.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
That's wild. Yeah.
He's like a grown-up now.
Yeah.
He doesn't act like one, but I have to say, too, because he's done Leadville now, the Leadville 100 a couple times. Running up Hope Pass. And of course, they don't run necessarily, but they're power hiking. What a bitch. Oh my God. And that's like 43 miles in when you get to the top going out, and then it's 56 or something coming back, like,
I think that's the part that breaks a lot of people.
yeah, it's a killer. And it was funny because going up, I felt sort of okay, even though it was cold and stuff. But I got to the top and I was, I think this would keep me from trying to do Leadville. Don't worry, Jody. I'm not doing Leadville.
Well, Pony, we always love having you here.
I love to be here.
Yeah.
It makes me sad because now I'm just going to become like a weekend duffer, and like I don't get to come on Backpacker Radio anymore.
I have a feeling that with
I come on lame-o, like weekend hiker radio.
We get requests all the time.
With Billy Joe and Sarah.
Yeah, we get requests all the time.
Did you get tired when you did this? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be snotty.
No, we get requests all the time to feature more section hiking.
Yeah.
So you're always welcome back in the show. We'd love to have you at any point.
I will do some cool little adventures. I want to do some different things. So I'm a desert rat. I truly thrive in the desert. So, hey, folks, Clay Bonnyman at Gmail. If you've got awesome desert routes for me, just send them to me. Yeah, hey, Duke, I know I could do that. That sounds like kind of a pain in the butt. I have friends who've done it.
If you haven't listened to Buck 30's episode or followed his stuff at all, I highly recommend that. He's done everything in the U.S., and he also very much loves the desert, so I think that would be...
It's amazing how natural I feel in the desert. Like, I'm a mountain kid. I grew up here at the foot of the Rockies, but I don't know what it is, but I mean, I thrive in the desert. So, like, a lot of people complain about the Great Basin or the Continental Divide Basin in Wyoming. I relished it. I mean, just so cool. Dead cows and everything. It's just a cool... I think what gets me going, and it's common between Scotland and the Great Basin, is you can see for miles and miles. I'll write a book about this once I finish. I'll throw in a chapter about Cape Wrath and maybe Woods Hole. and I'm thinking of calling it You Can See for Miles and Miles. Call back to the Who.
Yeah. Plug your books and anything else people should know about.
Yeah, so, I have a website, but I'm lazy, as you know by now, because I give myself Giardia and all that. So, the best way to do it is, if you're interested in my hiking books or books about other things, you can go to any online bookseller, put in my middle name, Bonnyman, Bonnyman. My stuff will come up. Yeah, I have a lot of writing to do. Some of it's non-hiking related. That's stuff that's I know I want to write, but I've been afraid to do it for decades. So we'll see.
Always love to see what you write.
Yeah, it's porn. It's hedging.
Yeah, this has been perfect. Thank you for joining us again in Backpack Radio.
Thanks. You guys have been fun, and it actually is such an incentive for me to know that I might get to come back on and talk. So I hope we can again.
The invitation is always open. This will not be your last appearance.
Right on.
Good. To the Trek propaganda portion of today's show. This is another one of those rare instances where I actually haven't had a chance to read the article. It came out this morning, and busy day. But I want to feature it because this is a 2023 blogger who is now turned writer. Shout out to Jillian. And the reason I'm excited about this one is this is a novel concept. I've never seen this on the Trek or let alone anywhere. The title of it is How Through Hiking Made Me Less Independent. So I'm not going to plug it more beyond that because, like I said, I haven't read it, but I am very intrigued to read this one because that's a provocative title and concept. And shout out to Jillian for making the leap from blogger to writer, which happens every year. We get a handful of people who make that leap. Okay, I have a question of the day that is in the show notes, but I think you wanted to pivot, so I'm going to let you introduce it.
Yes, just because I feel like this is a fun question for you based on the chaos of your life, but also for me because I'm annoying. What is something that you've been doing recently to intentionally annoy Jenna? Like, it doesn't have to be something huge, but I feel like it's always fun to intentionally annoy your partner.
Wow. Yeah. I would say right now is not a good time for me to intentionally be annoying my partner because I do plenty of things unintentionally. The biggest thing is we just struggle with divvying up who gets less sleep, who deals with the kids overnight, who deals with the kids first thing in the morning.
But that's not fun stuff.
It's the stuff.
Like, I'm talking like when I'll just climb on top of Garrett and sit on his lap while he's doing something, and then I'll call Harper so that she hops on the both of us, and he gets so overwhelmed. Like, stuff like that is funny.
Yeah. Nothing's jumping out at me, so go deeper on yours. Maybe something will come, but
today I was being really annoying in that every time he'd walk past me, he was wearing shorts. Every time he'd walk past me, I would grab his kneecaps and say, kneecap. And he really didn't love that after like the 5th or 6th time.
I love repetition is the soul of wit. And when I say that, Jody's like, no, it's not. So it's funny when you do it over and over.
Yeah.
I think it's
I was literally sitting on the floor in the middle of an area he had to keep walking through, and every time he'd walk through, kneecap.
I love it.
And one time, like one of the later times when he was really frustrated, he made me promise that I would not touch his kneecap when he walked back through. And I was like, all right, I promise. He was like, I trust you. It's your word. And I was like, I promise. And so then I just poked and wiggled the back of his kneecap, like the where your leg bends. And I was like, back of your kneecap. Just being an asshole.
Yeah, sure.
So
that's not a good place to get poked the back of the knee. That feels weird.
It feels really weird.
Yeah.
But I promised not to touch the front.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know. I didn't know if you were just doing anything fun like that. Spice things
I'll give
up.
Jenna like a good game butt slap pretty much every time she's like bending over to do laundry or something like that. So I think she's like subconsciously stopped bending over around me.
Does she put her finger in your butt when you walk upstairs?
She actually has done that to me. I don't like that.
Yeah, guys typically don't.
Yeah, it's I would say that's the don't.
If
push
I
button.
did that to Jody, I would lose my arm.
Oh, Garrett's
I'd be so mad about it.
Garrett's afraid to walk upstairs in front of me.
Oh no, I don't think I would like it either. But yikes.
Yeah,
Just a little surprise.
I have one.
Yeah, what's
So
yours?
Jody, my wife, loves to go dancing. That's her thing. She loves to go dancing. And wherever she is, Boulder or South Carolina, she gets to know all the musicians and goes every time she can. And there's this hideously awful, the music scene in the summer in Boulder is pretty cool. Like, really, there's funk that's really good, and there's cover bands, and down there, there's some good music, but some of it sucks. And there's this one band called Target. And they just suck. They're old people and they never vary their routine, and they have a drum machine. It just sucks. And so she has told me, like, I'm never going to go to them again. And I'm like, yeah, you are. You're going to go to Target, the band. Target, that's what, it's on Google Maps in our neighborhood. They live in our neighborhood. Target, the band. So one thing I do to annoy her is that anytime she's going to see any other band that's not like people I know, I just tell her she's going to see Target, the band. And I utterly won't sway off that. Oh, you're going to see Target, the band, aren't you? But
What is it?
it was super funny.
Repetition is the soul of
It
wit.
is the soul of it. And when I say that, she gets super pissed. Like, no, it's not. That's not funny. But I always thought it was. Anyway, she punked me really good one time. She said, yeah, well, I'm sleeping with their drummer. It's awesome. Like, perfect humor.
Yeah.
Drum machine.
Yeah.
They suck. They have the same, oh, God. They play, it's for tourists. And they play, every time they play the service songs, the Marines, Navy. Come on, stand. It's just a bunch of old losers. Target the band. And it annoys her.
Nice.
I did it tonight.
Yeah.
I said she was going to see Target the band. She said, no.
I like that.
That's great.
That made up for Zach's lack of.
Yeah, sorry guys. Impromptu plug me segment. Just because I got this information, I've been wanting to plug this on the show for a while.
Are we still talking about poking in the ass going up the stairs?
Yeah, plug me
Plug
in the
me.
butt.
Okay.
Yeah. For those of you who have watched us on YouTube, you've seen this beautiful piece of AT art behind Chaunce. We got a nice AT blaze and like a well-preserved piece of bark with the moss growing in between the cracks. This is from the AT blaze on Instagram. So if you want to get one for yourself, definitely check it out. We love this piece so much.
Nifty.
And he's not pulling them off the trees that mark the trail.
Right.
These are down trees that are irrelevant, that have bark that he can take in an LNT way.
Bark harvested from fallen trees on private land.
Yes.
And DM him if you're interested in getting one for yourself.
Cool.
And thanks to Owen for sending that information. Apparently they're buddies. Okay, let's do... You're on the hook for a trigger the internet.
After I specifically said I don't. Okay.
You can't just leave me hanging like that.
I know, but I just got to think of something good enough.
Should we do the Triple Crown first? And
No,
you
I could say one that's like not crazy. But I can say, well, I don't know. I think my trigger the internet was the other week with the aliens.
What is true?
So
I'm way behind.
No,
I
this
didn't listen to the show.
The one that we did hasn't aired yet, so you're definitely off the hook. But in a previous episode, I wanted to do something where we say something. Either you can believe it or not. But the point is, you say something that triggers people, taken purely out of context. And I said that Taylor Swift is badly overrated, which I don't believe. But we're gonna clip that and run it on our social media just to see how people react.
Okay,
I
I've
could
got
get
one.
you on so
I've got
much
one.
trouble.
Okay, and cut point. Part of me thinks it's not completely necessary to have to bring a tent on the AT. Because you get the shelters every 10 miles and everything. And if you can time your day well enough, you really don't have the competition there. You just have to wake up early enough to get there before it fills up. And if you can be smart and strategic about that, you really don't need to bring a tent.
Even hiking in the northbound bubble?
Yeah. It all depends on when you start your day. Just find out when the bubble's starting, start an hour earlier.
That's perfect.
That's going to be a really good one. End cut.
I love that.
I highly recommend bringing a tent. It's really stupid not to, guys.
Yeah. 100%. Okay, we did a swerve at the last minute. I don't know what triggered this for me, speaking of trigger, but this just felt like the right thing to do for Triple Crown, and that is the Triple Crown of bummer places to be. Something that just zaps your mood. I'll leave it at that. A location that zaps your mood.
Yeah. Okay, a funeral.
That's a good one.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I kind of like funerals. I do. I honestly.
Which part?
Well, so, I mean, I'm a romantic, and it sucks, somebody's gone, but I like that opportunity to feel the loss and grief. Like, I don't shy away from it. But, anyway, that's just my contrary view. Because I've always written about end-of-life stuff. I'm a hospice volunteer, and I like autumn better than spring. So I kind of have a weird romantic view of stuff like that. Thanks to Ray Bradbury, probably, but...
I have a good friend. He married me and Jenna.
You guys are like in a throuple? I
Yeah,
didn't know
that's
that.
that's
Wow.
exactly right.
Nice.
And
So isn't that like an extra hand for like
for a lot of
sleeping and
things,
stuff?
Yeah,
Oh, for a lot of
sleeping
things,
for
yeah.
sleeping
Hedging.
for hedging. Yeah,
Hedging, yeah.
But his request at his funeral is that we drink a pickled toe shot, which nobody knows what that is because it's not a thing.
Pig knuckles?
A pickled toe shot. So he's gonna pick 10 of his friends, and he's gonna hire service to pickle his toes,
Oh no.
and then we have to take a shot out of a glass with his pickled toe in it. We don't. I
the
think.
toe's gonna be in the glass.
Yeah, he requested that. I think
Wow.
the toe goes in our mouths, but we don't have to eat or
Oh my
swallow the toe. We
gosh.
can spit it out. But that's what he wants.
And you're on board with this.
He's a very good friend. If
Wow.
if somebody that's that good of a friend has a dying or a death wish, yes, I will honor it for sure.
That is disgusting.
Yeah, pretty gross.
Wow.
Um,
That is horrifying.
yeah.
I don't like funerals enough to want a toe shot.
No.
Okay. So my list of bummer places. I'm gonna go with. This is the one that jumped to my mind. It's probably the most obvious thing, and that's the DMV.
Yeah.
I agree
hate
with that. Everybody hates that.
Hate that.
Even the DMV here in Golden, which is in that really nice,
Yeah, the fancy building.
the Taj Mahal, as they call
Yeah.
it. It's the nicest aesthetic DMV I've ever been in by a lot. And even still, just like you never get a smile there. People don't even make eye contact with you when they're talking to you.
It's soul sucking.
Yeah, everything's so slow.
And everybody's unhappy. Like the people who work there are just such a bummer.
Yeah, I imagine it's not a.
You
cool
can't
job.
blame them, but
Yeah,
ugh.
yeah.
I have a friend who works at the DMV up in Longmont now. She's the nicest person on earth, so I don't know.
I will say kudos to them. I think they started doing this during COVID, but have maintained it. Is they now require an appointment,
Yeah.
so you don't have to go there and
Yep.
wait for 3 hours,
Yep.
which saves you so much time. It's amazing. But even with that, there have been 2 or 3 times where I show up and I've got the 12 documents and I forgot the 13th document, so I have to go home and get my social security card and my fingerprint
Jeez.
and my firstborn and come back. It's just I'm always bummed out to be at the DMV.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, like, how generic do these have to be? Could it be one that really only applies to me?
Absolutely.
Okay, my
Even
mom's
better.
basement.
Yeah. Why?
Because, all right, so when we moved to South Carolina, I don't own a house here anymore. So when I come here, like when Jody and I were coming, she doesn't come here anymore. She just doesn't want to leave the island. But I have to stay in my mom's basement. And my mom's basement, any mom's basement's going to suck, but hers is dark and the HVAC system sucks. So it's like really cold in the summer and the winter. It's just awful. And it's really dark. So no matter what, during the day, if I'm down there, I think the weather outside sucks. You can't not think that. And I guess I just really need sunshine because I'm like, oh my God, is it cloudy again? And then I go upstairs and it's like a perfect clear sky.
Yeah.
My mom's basement sucks.
Yeah, any place without natural light is a bummer. At this studio, sometimes included. I've actually bless you. That office has opened back up, and I've toyed with the idea of moving
Just
over
to
there.
have the window.
Yeah, it's just I feel like it's going to be colder there, and we'll lose a wall for all of our glorious artworks. I don't know if the move makes sense, but yeah, not having natural
And I
light.
think that is generic now that I think of it. Who really wants to be in their mom's basement? not that many
Yeah, I
people.
don't think anyone strives as an adult, especially.
God, it sucks.
Yeah.
When I stay there in the summer, I sleep out on her deck. I hate it that much. I sleep outside.
Yeah. Snake draft, you get another one if you're ready for it.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. Really bummer places to be. God, this is coming to mind. I guess it's Giardia on the mind. On the toilet when you're constipated.
Ooh, yeah.
That's a almost as bummer as it gets. I rarely am, but when I have been, I'm that's so bad.
Yeah.
That's a terrible place to be.
Yeah. Middle school, high school, I used to battle with pretty bad constipation, and it's a very painful experience when it does finally break. It's
And it's just like mentally, just like, come on.
yeah,
What the heck?
yeah.
So that's my very, very juvenile second.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'll go with one that's not too dissimilar from what you just said, but I'm gonna go with a porta potty.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got to take a dump. And I'll go even more specific, like a porta potty at like a music festival or someplace where it's gotten good use. Sometimes you'll get
And on
to
a hot summer day.
ooh, yeah, where it really kicks up the stench. Sometimes you'll get the lucky porta potty where you're like the first person to use it since it's been cleaned or it's recently been established. Like that's not terrible, not the best, but one where like you can clearly see the last person just had violent diarrhea and this smell is lingering and there's flies and you have to make contact with the seat. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Chaunce?
My turn?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got a list going.
Okay.
The one I'm going to pick is I-70 traffic. Sitting in I-70
Oh my
traffic,
God.
bummer place to be.
Yeah,
Because you know it's
absolutely.
not ending anytime soon. You know that there's just like, you know how far you have to go. And you feel every bit of it.
I totally agree. I think that I-25 for me is even worse. I feel like there's always a car on fire. Like it doesn't matter where you are on I-25. You could be next to Wyoming.
I have seen a car on fire at
Yeah,
I-25.
that's where cars go to light on fire is I-25.
Yeah.
That's the official location.
Okay. This is so hard to pick my third. I'm going to have honorable mentions.
Yeah, same.
I'm going to say back to the office when you've worked from home.
Oh, yeah.
If they were to send me back to the office, and they tried to get me to go in today, and I was like, oh, sorry, I have the podcast. I can't. But to not have the choice and to have to go back into the office after work from home, I think might be the ultimate bummer.
And I think a lot of companies are doing that right now, too.
Yeah, well, my manager just found out via email that starting in January, he has to go back in 3 days a week. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So you know that they're inching it along.
Yeah. Is the writing on
Backpacker
the wall for
Radio's
you?
got to make it big. We've got to make it big. We've got to be able to replace my income.
Yeah, we should plug a sponsor.
Before the time that they send that email to the reps. Because I am too close to the office to get out of it. And I cannot mentally bear the thought. Like, I would have gone in today because it would have been fun to see a couple people. But my theory is if they see me in there, it'll remind them that I could go there. And I want them to forget that I even am, that's a possibility. And that won't happen. But it prevents me from even going in voluntarily for fun things because I just don't want them to be like, well, you came in for the fun things. I just don't see me anywhere near there.
Yeah, that's great. And we'll plug drinklmnt.com.
Drink all the fucking LMNT in the world. It's actually called Element.
Yeah, but when you're doing the website, you got to do it phonetically.
Yeah.
But Element/the-Trek.
I found out all my friends love it.
Or no, sorry, /Trek.
What is it?
It's like electrolyte mix, but
Oh, okay.
they sent us
Is
each
it
a box. Well, so they sent us each a box, and I sent a picture to my friends, and I said, for the fitness girlies, if anyone wants some of these, like, they sent us 240 packets each. And the group chat went off. I've never seen so many responses. They were like, I love, like, they literally drink it all the time. They were saying which flavors they like the most. It was amazing.
It is
I'm
good.
looking for that.
Yeah,
I'm
the
looking for
citrus is really good. The grapefruit. I don't want to make this an ad. That was kind of a joke, but I do genuinely enjoy
Okay.
it.
I have to
I was
check that
using
out.
it prior to them being a sponsor.
I need
so.
to check that out because I'm still not satisfied with my choices.
Yeah.
I kind of like the True Lemon, but it doesn't really have electrolytes in it. So.
The thing about this is it's high in salt. So if you're a heavy sweater, I don't want to make this an ad, but it's good stuff. I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, this is good. Keep me out of the office.
All right.
My last pick here, we're going to definitely have to do some honorable mentions, but going back to childhood / earlier life like Pony, I'm going to go with Midwest winters. Just no redeeming qualities in the winter there. There's not a mountain to slide down. It's just gray, and because it's so humid, the cold is even colder. It stings your bones.
Ugh.
You have to drink your way through the winter. It's what makes Midwest people great. Shout out my fellow Wisconsinites, but I choose to not enjoy Midwest
It's
winters.
kind of like being in your mom's basement all winter long,
yeah,
isn't it?
yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Okay, your last one.
So, apropos of our earlier discussion, hitchhiking in Wyoming when you look like me. Fuck Wyoming. Wow. I'm not a patient hitchhiker. I don't like it. I had great luck on the PCT, but I find it humiliating. And I tried every trick in the book sometimes. I'd like empty my water bottle and nope. They just go by in their big old trucks. Here's a complaint I have. When I had a pickup truck when I was a cowboy, I put stuff in the bed, like shovels and saddles and stuff. Now they're all covered, so you can't ride back there like a hitchhiker. Well, why is there a cover in a pickup? Anyway, so yeah, seriously, standing on a highway in windy Wyoming with your thumb out is a bummer place to be.
Yeah, great, perfect.
That's a good one. Honorable mentions. Yeah, here's my list. The dentist.
Ooh, great. Ooh,
Oh, yeah.
That should have been at the top of my list. I
Yeah.
hate the dentist.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah.
I hate the dentist.
I used to not mind it as a kid. The dentist was great. He was a big Bulls fan. He'd put on the Pink Floyd song to get me amped up. Like, he did the right thing.
Yeah, but when they're just cramming your mouth open for a half an hour and you've got horrible noises in your head, it's bad.
Yeah.
The dentist sucks.
I hate it now, for sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's bad.
The gynecologist.
Yes.
I
thank
hate
you.
that too.
Yep.
It's so uncomfortable.
Mammograms.
Yeah, they zap
Jo-
you.
Jody
and
says that's
they,
bad.
They do the stuff.
Buses.
Sure.
Being on a Greyhound. Horrible. A hospital waiting room. Unless you're waiting for a baby to be born, it's probably a bummer. In a store that doesn't interest you while someone else is shopping.
Yes, totally.
I've one that's, I guess it's not similar, but
I'm thinking like when I was a kid and my mom would take us to the mall because she can't just leave your kids at home.
Yeah.
And she's like walking around petite sophisticate. And I'm like sitting behind a mannequin wanting to die.
Yeah.
that's how I feel about basically every store that's not like a candy shop
Yeah.
or a place where they serve alcohol. But yeah, anytime I go traveling with Jenna or my family, they want to shop. And I've never been in a shop that has interested me. Like
I like bookstores.
Yeah. I like
Outdoor
those.
stores can be fun.
Yeah,
And
you
that's
can-
really it.
You can read the first chapter of a book while everyone hangs out.
Yep.
Get a nice cappuccino.
Yeah, but oh my God. We used to tease my kid, Jody, and I'd be like, okay, well, we just have to go to a few more places before we go home. We're going to go to the dry cleaner and the furniture store. We would come up with the most boring places that a kid could be.
Do people still go to the dry cleaner?
My
I
mom
haven't-
does.
Yeah.
Garrett goes. Garrett takes things to the dry cleaner all the time.
Yeah. I guess
That-
it's just me not doing
Being
nice
at the dry
things.
cleaner is one of my bummers.
Yeah.
Even if you're in there for 5 minutes. Well, okay, so I'm me, and I'm like this. You know how I am. And my dad was trying to get me to join the military. And so he sent me down the street to this guy, a friend of his, and the guy was just telling me this and that and the other thing. And I don't remember what the context was, but the guy was like, well, you might be able to go on and like own a dry cleaner or something. I was like, you know what, buddy? I'm going to live the rest of my life proving that I'm not going to own a goddamn dry cleaner. So
Hey,
I have a problem with dry cleaners.
You made it. Yeah.
Oh, so boring.
Yeah.
Wow. It makes me...
I have a few more. Post office. Most post offices are terrible.
I don't mind those too much.
Now that I've got the printing label thing at home down, I can just go in and drop stuff off. I don't mind. Typically, the people that work are actually very friendly, but just the amount of time that I spent waiting in line, especially like during the holidays, and some of like the off-site post offices where it's not actually a post office, but they have the USPS service are much nicer. They'll sell candy and stuff, but like the actual like U.S. government post offices are a bummer. Being in a long line anywhere, I don't care what it is.
I was going to say a rental car line
Sure.
after the trip is over.
Yeah.
To return it.
Yeah.
Nothing to look forward to there.
I can't handle any long line. Even at like even like Six Flags, if the line's going to be an hour long, I get bummed out. This one's probably a me problem, but I'm sure Pony does well in this scenario. A crowded social event that doesn't have alcohol or cell service or a dog. A dog, I
If
can
there's
just,
a bookshelf, I'm fine.
yeah.
But I'm a book freak, so...
I'm thinking like a networking event or a dry wedding. I don't know if those exist, but something along those lines where I can't just escape with alcohol and I have to talk to people, make small talk. I crumble real quickly.
Wow.
And kind of similar to you, but I've done the drive from the Midwest a lot to Colorado and driving through Kansas on I-70
Kansas.
or Nebraska on I-80. Those are both
I like
major
Nebraska
bombers.
better, but
I like
is the
Kansas
killer.
better.
Yeah.
Kansas has Colby, the oasis of the the oasis of the Midwest. They've got a Starbucks there.
Yeah.
So one time I
Such a grind.
I look forward to hitting that.
Oh my God.
Like that is for me the light at the end of the tunnel. And one time I went through Nebraska and I forgot that I was going through Nebraska, so I was just waiting for Colby the whole time and it never came. It was really hard mentally.
Oh. Yeah. Back when caffeine used to work for me, it'd be fun to get like a grande Starbucks and like get over caffeinated and listen to an audiobook. But
I'll toss in pumping your gas in bad weather, be it too cold, too rainy, super windy, below freezing. Having to pump your gas and just wait, especially when they don't have the little thing that keeps the levered.
you have to hold it.
Yeah.
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 That's a human rights violation when they don't have those.
I think that's it for my list.
Cool.
Sweet.
I've got one. Human resources trainings of any kind. I don't care what we're talking about. It is a bummer to be in a human resources training.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just don't care what they're trying to teach me.
You
Like,
haven't
give
been
me a
s-
memo.
Yeah, you haven't been to a Trek HR training because Jabba's the head of our HR. So
It's probably pretty fun with him, you
Yeah.
know, but that's cool.
yeah, we'll get sued one day for sure.
Yeah. Oh my God, any kind of. Oh my God, they just go so slow and they dive deep into things that can be explained in one sentence.
Yeah.
And it's like 12 slides and 45 minutes to explain something that literally you could say in one
Yeah,
sentence.
totally.
Terrible.
Do you want to take the mailbag?
Sure. Mailbag. Hi, Zach and Chaunce. Wanted to email in a review since it's difficult to leave one on Spotify. Nonetheless, I thought it was important to express my gratitude. 5 stars. Worth every second of listening time, Zach and Chaunce's charming personalities make it feel like I'm in a room with my 2 good friends. This is even better, though, because I can't smell Zach's farts through my earbuds. Their contagious love of the outdoors certainly makes being stuck in an office a little more bearable. Combined with the wonderful guests they bring in, they demonstrate the best of the wonderful hiking community. My main problem with this podcast is that now every time I hike, I face the duality of not wanting to have a poop incident, but also the desire to have a good poop story of my own. Quick question, my friends and I are thinking of doing an everything but a backpack hike. What would you bring instead of a backpack for either a day hike or an overnight trip? Peace, love, and cinnamon. Burp.
Yeah. I don't know.
Besides a mule? I mean, I don't get the question.
Just like a different carrying.
It's like how
wagon.
7-Eleven does the everything but a cup day, and you bring like a bucket or whatever to put your Slurpee in.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So he wants to know what can he put all the things in that usually go in his backpack that is not a backpack.
What about like 2 5-gallon buckets connected with like a stick, like a ox or something like that?
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah. I'm sure
Yeah,
that
that'd be
would
a good
feel
one.
real nice. I guess if you got some padding, like a squat bar or something like that.
Well, you could also get a stick and get like the little red and white checkered cloth and do the like over
Yeah,
your shoulder,
sure.
top the fence thing.
Hobo style.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true vagrants.
I'm holding in a sneeze right now. It's really hard.
Well, thank you to Burp for that very nice email.
Bless you.
And that is an interesting thing that I think maybe we've created is glorifying poop stories because now
Yes.
everyone's like excited to share it. So I wonder if anyone like could have avoided a situation, but now they know that they can get
It's a
some
safe space.
You know what,
internet
though?
fame.
Here's my question. In the midst of your poop story, does anybody really enjoy it? Because
Yeah.
if you do, I think that's a problem.
Zach
it's
enjoys it a
type
lot.
2 fun, your poop stories,
Yeah.
because when, like the one I was talking about earlier, I just can barely even think about that. I don't want to remember that.
The shame, the smell.
Everything about it in the middle of it sucks.
Yeah.
Dog pawing poo all over you.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. That's
So-
what makes it funny is it
Yeah.
sucks
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
It's laughing at someone
It's
else's
type 2.
expense.
Yeah, definitely
It's
type,
type
2.
2.
No pun
It's
intended.
number 2,
Yeah.
as they say.
5-star reviews. Got a couple here. Best podcast. The energy is so great and informative. Super entertaining. That is from Asa Davis, probably a relative. Thank you, Asa.
I
Aunt
think it's
Asa.
Asa.
Asa. I like
Asa
I like
sounds
Asa
wrong.
better. And this is from Ali Merrick. The title is a thumbs up and nice to listen while planning my hikes and camping trips, driving on the way to trail, and when I freak myself out walking alone in the woods and need something to distract me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing how awesome Sawyer is and all the great gear, tips, and tricks to help me in my backpacking journey. I've laughed a lot and appreciate the guests, that's you, Pony, and space you make to share different perspectives. If you guys want to have your review read on air, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave any number of stars, just not 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Yes.
And you can say anything, and we'll read it on the teleprompter. Sticker code for today.
Okay.
Hedging?
Hedging would be an easy one, but I want something more fun. So what I think we should do in the hedging spirit is on this post, the one where we post, this is episode whatever, it's got the Walking Slow song. Whoever's lucky number first commenter that's in on this, You know that game you play where you tell a story as a group and each person takes another sentence?
Yeah.
I want the commenters to play that game where they're helping each other build a story one part at a time, and they're piggybacking off the comment before them, and it's going to be the story of Pony hedging on the CDT.
Love that.
Oh, that's
very
disgusting.
elaborate.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Super elaborate.
So I want to see this like long comment thread because you said you were hedging for a long time. So
There were days.
this is going to be the story of Pony hedging on the CDT. Whoever gets to the comments first, if you don't see it started, start it up, and then if you get there and you see it's been started,
Wow.
continue the story.
That's excellent.
And I can't wait to read it.
Yes.
Hedging.
Super big thank you to our Chuck Norris Award winners on Patreon. That is Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting, Andrew, Austin McDaniel, Austin Ford, Brad and Blair from 13 Adventures, Brent Stenberg, Brian Alsop,
Fables.
Christopher Marshburn, Coach from Marion Outdoors, Dane,
Ish.
Derek Cook, Do Good Pantry, Eric Casper,
The Friendly Ghost.
Eric Hoffman, Greg McDaniel,
May he bring honor to his name.
Liz Seeger, Matt Sukup, Mike Poisel, Patrick Ciencialo, Sawyer Products, Spam, Timothy Hahn,
Solo.
and Tracy Trigger. You can follow us at Backpacker Radio on TikTok and Instagram, at Backpacker Pod on X, Facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can follow Pony.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I do Instagram. It's pony__ Bonnyman. I don't do much social media. If you want to read my books, search Bonnyman online. You'll find books. I also want to say I had the pleasure of hanging out with Austin McDaniel, one of your Chuck Norris folks.
Good guy.
Through Glacier National Park.
Nice.
And we're pals.
Nice. Yeah.
He's in Colorado now, working his way south.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Got
came
meet
to an
him.
episode
Yeah.
this week.
Good guy there.
Yep.
Subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on YouTube. What's up, YouTube?
Hi, Internet.
Got lots of good videos, stuff coming through. And that is it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening, and happy hiking.
Bye.